All right, I'm gonna open the meeting October 17th, 2024, the select board at 6:30 p.m. And as usual, we read at the start of each meeting to make our meetings more efficient and effective. The select board has made changes to the public comment portion. Citizens or others who wish to address the select board during the meeting may do so during the public comment portion of the meeting. This is for items that are not on the agenda. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per speaker. All speakers will be heard for people are given a second opportunity to speak. Once the public comment portion is over, the public will be able to speak if the chair determines their input is needed during another portion of the meeting or at the very end of the meeting. There are comments to be made. For participants on Zoom, if you have a question, please raise your hand. Please only use the Zoom chat for technical issues, such as room audio, or if you can't raise your hand or things like that. Please don't comment or question in the chat as it is distracting for all. The intent of this new policy is not to stifle community input, but rather to allow the select board to be more effective and efficient in our work. People are welcome to email the members of the select board at any time with feedback or questions. Our email addresses are on the town's website and on the notice on the sign-in table. Thank you. And as usual, we start with public to be heard for items that are not on the agenda. Do we have anybody who is wishing to speak then? Oh, yes. Would you like to come to, it's always nicer if you come to the table because that way we see you better, even though theoretically this sound is good for everybody.
No, it'll be very quick.
And please state your name for the record.
Yeah, it's Robert Bob DeVos.
Oh, yes.
And by the way, it'll be brief. I'm not asking for money or anything, so hopefully that's a good start. It's really brief. I just go ahead, I guess.
Yeah,
Yes,
jump
please.
right in.
Jump right in.
Okay, we need to hear, bear with me. Okay. First of all, thank you for the opportunity to be heard. Just a few wide range concerns and suggestions in random order. I'd like to ask if the select board might consider to approve the following as a referendum question on the next ballot. And I would please ask that for a timely decision, so this could be considered on the next ballot. And it goes as follows. And there's plenty of room for editing, whatever here, but here we go. Shall the residents of Jericho vote to approve that the Jericho Selectboard require that at least 2 members of the Jericho Planning Commission and at least 2 select board members be mandated to attend to a minimum, be mandated to attend to a minimum of 2 meetings a year to meet with and take place with representatives of each of the water entities that serve Jericho. And that means all of them together at each meeting. This would help provide, the reason for this is to provide, to look at the issue of residential water to our homes, along with not just the entities, Sarah, such as the water entity I belong to, but also along with independent well owners. It's simply to gain a broader understanding of our current and future residential water infrastructure needs in our community. I know it's a little long-winded, plenty of room to work on it or whatever, but that's the gist of what I want to try to get across. A couple other minor points very quick. This can be discussed at a later time, but I just want to submit it at this point. Does Jericho have any noise ordinance in regard to vehicles with loud mufflers? And if law enforcement covering Jericho could address this when possible and broaden patrol areas. A couple other quick points. That the fire warden and our fire department, please, and fire warden, excuse me, and the fire department, please review and maybe modify approval of burn permits where neighborhood homes are more in close proximity to each other versus those that say own 10 acres or more of land or whatever. that the town of Jericho better address the removal or hazard of dead trees on the Jericho right of way along our roads. Two more quick items.
So you said the last one, you guys didn't quite get. What was the last one you just said about the trees?
Concerning the trees.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. That the town of Jericho better address the removal or hazard of dead trees in the Jericho right of way along our roads.
Gotcha. Thank you.
And just two other quick ones. The new town Jericho garage facility. I would hope the board, anyone concerned would please not to consider a water well for this new facility so close to an old landfill. I would hope at some point a water line, perhaps even a water reserve, should be considered for access by the entire community in case of any residential or commercial water need or emergency. And the last item, need for more communication on how sewer and water infrastructure planned for only certain sections of town will be paid for by those who will benefit directly. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I do have copies if I could do want me or
I can pass them out, sure.
or whatever works.
Yep.
Nice. Did you?
Perfect. Yes, please.
Yeah, what?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks.
Sabina has a question online.
Who?
Sabina,
Okay, public hearing. Okay,
Did you call on me?
hey Sabina,
Okay, just a quick question about the, your speed is signs, on Skunk Hollow Road. Were those temporary or are they coming back once they are tamper-proof and repaired?
yeah, they are coming back.
Okay, thank you.
Am I right that those are gonna move around town?
Mhm.
They won't be back forever on Skunk Hollow.
Right.
Yeah, they're back, they'll kind of be moving around town.
right,
Oh, we have two more also,
Mhm.
Right, so we
could,
but.
but they aren't gonna live on Skunk Hollow.
Right,
necessarily every day,
exactly.
all day.
right.
All right,
I
any,
drove up and down that road 4 times today and didn't notice that they were gone. I should have.
Well, okay, thank you.
Thanks, Sabina.
thank you. Any other comments that are not on the agenda?
I mean, they were definitely gone now that you say that. I know they were not there, but it didn't register until you mentioned.
No
Nope.
other questions.
All right, so this will, I'm sure help Dana. Is that, we're going to ask our road foreman, Jacob, to come up and speak about some updates.
So what do you think of your first summer on the Jericho Road crew? How'd it go?
Yeah.
Wonderful,
Yeah.
wonderful. So for the most part, most of the time spent up until now, has been dealing with, issues that arose from the July flood. Some damage we had before the July flood and, the windstorm we had, this summer as well, along with, working on some of our grant aids and our, Better Back Road grant. Most of our grant aid, was done on Nashville Road, from the Snipe Island Bridge to, I think it was a little over a mile, past it, just before the Bentley Bridge. We did some ditching, stone lining. We added a drainage into the road, just past Snipe Island Road, because during mud season that spot had some excessive mud, and it started pushing the road out. So we put a 4-foot perforated drain in the road with some drainage stone. an outlet to the shoulder of the road to allow that water to not cause mud or minimize the mud. Most of all of our roads from the July flood are back together with a series of maybe 4 smaller pieces that we need to do in the spring. Well, not smaller, but like culverts. This isn't the time of year. There's an estimated of a 10-foot culvert expected on Snipe Island Road, which we have already purchased. And this is not the time of year to be doing a culvert on that side. You won't get the compaction you need. And could create issues of anything we might receive throughout this winter. So we're gonna wait till the spring to do that. As I mentioned, the Fitzsimons Bridge was reopened, I believe, last week. There's gonna be a small period of time tomorrow where the road will be closed for approximately 4 hours to be repaved. And then there will be a day where it will be closed within the next couple of weeks for guardrails to be replaced. We are also gonna add, just because of the embankment that is there, we're gonna add, there was 20 feet of guardrail there, we're gonna add another 20 feet to extend just for the excessive embankment that is there that approaches the bridge. The July flood also created an issue at Leary Road at the intersection of Nashville Road. We are finishing some ditching there, and then we are adding a 3-foot culvert there as well, to allow, because the Millbrook, for lack of a better word, broke its banks, in between that area.
Every single area of Millbrook.
So, after the July flood rate in August, when we got like 1.5 inches of rain, the water started going over Leary Road again. So,
When?
in August.
Just 1.5 inches, that's not much.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's a natural area for all that area to drain into. So there's a 2-foot culvert that's in there, and it's not enough to hold that amount of water that potentially could be coming through there now until who knows when. So we're adding another 3-foot culvert in that section to minimize the opportunity for that to happen again, along with adding a foot of gravel on that section of road to give the height it needs to allow it to not go over the road. And that will be done on Tuesday. That culvert will be placed. We put our road close signs out this week, the notice for everybody, so they have the weekend to, which we will be detouring down Leary Road because it'll be going across Nashville Road, so gives everyone a chance to prepare for that. Another thing, not road related, but equipment related, we started undercoating our trucks recently. We bought a pail of, it's fluid film, it's an undercoating. It's $189 for that 5-gallon bucket, and it did 2 tandems and a pickup. And
It's like oil.
it's a protection. It's like a lubrication. It just adds an extra layer of protection on the frame. It made the frame of the truck look brand new.
Really?
Yeah. So
What's that stuff called?
fluid film.
I just wonder, like, I mean, you see people like advertising undercoating, and it's it just seems like one of those things that the dealership tries to sell you, and you're like, is it fake? Is it real?
It's a
Like,
real thing.
Yeah, I sent Paula some pictures and
And of course, the stuff for the cars is, a lot more expensive and not necessarily
Yeah.
functional.
and I mean, we were able
That's
to, Casey took it upon himself and he started doing all the trucks and he did an amazing job with getting them all undercoated and maintained.
What do
and
you
taken
put
care
on
of.
the brush? Do you spray it?
So you have to buy a sprayer that hooks to the air hose. So what we do is we pressure wash all the dirt off.
Yep.
And then we let it dry, and then whatever remains of dirt or whatever, we take the air gun and we blow all that off.
Yep.
And then he goes through and he starts from the top, and then we put it on our pit and we go underneath and he sprays it underneath of it. So it gets every nook and cranny. Mechanics don't necessarily like working on it after, but
Yeah.
it will add life to our trucks.
That's cool.
Especially the salt ones, you know, that this time,
Hard.
coming on this time of year, they're gonna be in it quite a bit.
Yeah.
So that is, something we're gonna start doing, you know, every year and trying to stay on top of it, because, you know, and the whole plan is to, you know, add resale to the trucks when we trade them in and things along
Keep the
those
roads to a
lines.
minimum, and
Yeah.
keep the frames together.
I didn't know that's something we could just do. That's cool.
Very cool. Oh, I have a question. I'm just curious, the way the stitching has been done on Nashville, you have these little little berms of riprap, and then you have grassy swales in between. Is that to slow down drainage along those ditches?
It's it's to slow down, it's to slow down the water, but also to catch the sediment.
That's what I
So
wondered. Yeah.
instead of, cause like, you're supposed to stone line anything over like a 15% grade.
Right, it has to be in the
So
grade.
most of that stuff on Nashville is under that.
Yeah.
So in order to kind of do the same thing, and I stone line all the inlets and outlets of the culverts to catch that sediment before it goes through the culvert, to try and minimize, you know, the blockage of the culvert. But all those dams we've been putting down through, and then it gives us an area to clean out the sediment instead of, you know, taking out a whole truckload of stone as well at the same time and having to replace it.
Yeah, I wonder because there are some that, clean a whole water longer.
Yeah.
But it's all looking nice and green.
Karina has her hand up. I don't know if you wanna. Karina, do you have anything?
We might as well. There's-
I have a question about the road update when that's appropriate.
Well, since we don't want Jacob to spend,
Yeah.
once he's
Okay.
finished talking, then she can ask her
Okay.
question.
Um,
Are you done?
yeah, I mean, all the other, Milo White is good. From the July flood, Snipe Island, we just resurfaced, reditched, and added a series of culverts in that. And then, other than that large culvert this spring, Leary Road, and doing what we're doing on Leary Road this coming week. And then after we do, complete that, at the intersection of Leary Road, over by the Fish and Game Access, we're going to ditch that as well.
Oh, that really, because things just.
Yep. So, and then after, I'm hoping, the plan is, I've talked to, neighboring town Richmond, to work with them to they have, a drop or an excavator that's on wheels, to remove some of this brush and trees that are in our ditches from, previous windstorms. Instead of loading our excavator on a trailer, unloading, loading, unloading, it frees up having them come over with that, and then being able to have guys, cutting the trees up a little bit shorter and having trucks moving, we'll be able to clean, the roads up quicker.
Mhm.
And working with them for up to a week
That's great.
to do that. Cool.
Cool. Well, thank you.
Thanks, Jacob.
Thank you. So Karina can answer your question then.
Go ahead, Karina.
Hi, thank you for the update. You guys have been working really hard. I know the road crew has been out a ton, so I'm really appreciative of all the good work you've done. I did leave a couple messages with you and I'm sure you haven't had time to respond, but I do have concerns about I live on Fields Lane and I've seen it on Fields Lane and there's other roads where there's cones out because of washouts on the shoulder of the road in different areas. And just going into this winter season with plows on the roads, with these substantial washouts, it seems like it would be a fairly easy fix to bring in some stone to stabilize those areas in the short term, and also put in some cuts, diversion cuts, to divert water off of the road where it's not crowned properly, which is something that has been done in the past on Fields Lane and other roads. So I just was wondering if that was something that was in the plan before the snow falls, or what you were thinking there.
Yeah, absolutely. Right now, we're just trying to tackle the bigger, projects like the road closures and, get the necessary culverts in before winter, so that way we have time, for compaction for those. And then, once that is complete, then that is our plan to go back through, and any of those sections where there's smaller washouts and stuff like that is to address those as well.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, I just know that those little problems can become big problems really fast from past storm events. So appreciate that. Thank you.
Not a problem.
Great.
Thanks, Jacob.
Well, thank you very much. Have a good evening.
You too.
Sorry, I have one last question.
Oh.
What's your take on the snowfall for this winter? You
Oh.
guys, you guys must have a better insight.
That,
Um,
don't say it.
minimal, hopefully.
There we go.
Is my hope. I mean,
It's La Nina, who knows?
uh,
So we
anything,
would do,
I prefer snow over ice. That's,
Right.
You do.
right.
so if we get more snow, I'm
Minimal.
happy to deal with that. Ice, not so much, but the roads will be clear.
All right, follow up in April, see how you do.
Thanks, Jacob.
Right. Next is the 90% wastewater feasibility report by John Ashley. What we're going to do is, because it makes it more efficient if John is able to complete his presentation before people ask questions. And the select board will ask a few questions first, and then we'll go to the public, and then we'll finish with the select board again.
Okay, sounds good. Well, and I checked early on and it looked like she was able to share the presentation. What I had shared with her is 85 slides or so, 81, there we go. But we'll start, it's the old slides plus the new information. So my intent is to really fairly quickly review what alternatives we talked about last time I was in. Start on slide 35.
35.
And if I'm going through those and you want to stop on one, feel free to flag me, but I wasn't going to spend meaningful time until we get to 58.
It's fine. I think this is the best we can do. The people on Zoom are seeing the other view.
Well, they are?
Which is fine, but yeah, we should sit down and figure out how to, because I tried, I couldn't make it better
You
last time
couldn't?
we did. You know,
They're
the
seeing
preview, so they're seeing you guys.
Oh, because you're seeing what's on the computer.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think you're past
you want 35, 30, yeah, you're 41.
See, I can't see it on
I
here.
know you can't see the number.
Oh,
Back one more, there you go.
Thank you.
okay. Yeah, just really briefly overviewing, we last time had the 60% meeting and went through alternatives for each of the 3 or 4 areas, depending on how you look at it. So this is the summary of the alternatives we looked at for Jericho Center. The preferred alternative that we looked at when those were compared was focusing on having the disposal systems north of the study area. So you can go ahead to the next one. This is the alternative we looked at where the disposal
I'm
sites were spread out.
Sorry to interrupt, but for the people on the screen, it's in the view where we can't see, we see the notes and not the full screen.
Yeah, I don't know that we can fix that, Karina. I think you're just gonna have to blow it up if you can,
Okay,
because I see
I
the
try
same thing.
Let me just try again. I don't know why.
I think if you click on that little thing that looks like a display monitor, that takes you to the mode you want to be in.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I
That's
do,
what she clicked.
and it brings it up like this.
Because even Paula can see what we're seeing here, but the Zoom people are seeing that weird.
Yeah,
You can choose what you can't choose what screen you're sharing.
She's
I
sharing
am.
the only one she's got. It's just
Oh.
acting weird.
The one at the bottom
Oh, it's
doesn't work.
I just don't know how much time it's gonna take us
Right.
to figure this out.
I'm on Zoom and I can see it.
Get around so I can see what I'm doing.
Okay,
I'm on Zoom and I can see it fine.
Can you see speaker notes?
I can see it fine on
Well,
Zoom.
yeah, now we're just seeing the slides on the left. Now it's speaker notes again. So that display monitor thing on the bottom there, right to, if you go to the fourth icon from the left, nope. That one doesn't take you to the right spot. No.
and then
Fade to black.
at least I didn't touch anything and make it move.
Did that make it better on yours? Is that any better, Karina?
That's better.
yes, that's better.
Thank
You're
you.
right.
Thank you so
Hi.
much.
Hide presenter mode was the thing.
Oh, okay. Hide presenter mode. Okay,
Great.
thank you.
Good, okay. So this was one of the alternatives we looked at where the disposal sites were spread out in 3 different locations around Jericho Center. The only updates to these as we're going through are that the flows were updated to match the town's housing resolution. So there's a little bit of a change in the numbers that are on these from when we talked about it before, but essentially this is just a refresher. We looked at this as an alternative. You can go ahead to the next one. This is the preferred alternative for Jericho Center, which collects the wastewater from the whole study area. Also, you can see a purple dashed line coming in from the top right as I'm facing it. That's the force main coming in from Ethan Allen firing range.
The what?
A force main coming in from Ethan Allen firing range. It's a pipe under pressure, bringing their wastewater into
Gotcha.
your system.
Okay, thank you.
And then the disposal sites are the yellow polygons north of the study area. We'll spend more time on that because it's the preferred alternative. The next page is the same collection area, but everybody having an individual pump to go into the system after their septic tanks. So you leave their septic tanks in place or upgrade them if needed and put a pump in right after that. And everybody goes into a shared force main. This one handling just effluent from everybody's septic tanks. And
Handling. Sorry, effluent is solid,
effluent is the liquid
the liquid.
after your solids drop out in the septic tank.
Okay, so I would keep my solids on my property and I would pump out and they would take out my liquids.
Yes, and the way we've run the costs on this for the operating costs, assume that the town would take over pumping people's septic tanks as part of this, hauling it out.
Okay.
So everybody, you would have the surety that
Be dealt
they're all
with.
being maintained.
Yep, okay. Thank you.
Go ahead to 3, yes, so we also looked at pumping everybody's wastewater all the way to the Richmond wastewater treatment facility. We looked at the environmental impacts and benefits of all of these alternatives. And then we looked at overall costs. There's the corners.
Can you go back for 1 second? Sorry. You explain to me again, you did it before, opinion of probable construction costs versus project cost summary. What are the difference of those two things?
Yes, so the opinion of probable construction costs is the physical things that are put in during construction to build the system.
Create this.
But yeah, the pipes, the pumps, anything you're physically putting in. The project cost summary brings in the soft costs of your expensive engineer.
Yeah.
Legal costs, costs of purchasing the land for your disposal sites, things like things along those lines, soft costs, not actually the construction. So it's, but you still have to pay for those. So that's typically those are rolled into your construction loan. If you had a loan for that full amount, you know, those are the costs you'd be looking to pay out of the construction loan.
Thank you.
So Jericho Corners, we also looked at 4 alternatives, including the do nothing. Well, I guess that would be 5. The preferred alternative was going to a single disposal system at the elementary school site. And we'll quickly flip through these to review also. It's just a note that as we went into the 90%, we're looking at some ways to either, you know, how you could start a little smaller and or some other alternatives to make it not as large of a project. So on alternative 1 was having, again, same type of approach, having disposal systems in a few different locations to see if it was kind of more efficient to collect wastewater from the area closest to each of these rather than get it all to one location. And the advantages and disadvantages of those besides just costs. Go ahead to the next one. That is having 2 different disposal locations, one on the town forest land and the other at the elementary school. And then the next one is the preferred alternative, which is all the wastewater going to one site, basically in the middle. With the amount of wastewater flow in Jericho Corners, it's the largest number of lots of any of the study areas. So the highest flows on its own, and so it does require a higher level of treatment. Tertiary wastewater treatment is what would be needed to treat that all in one location, and that's a real wastewater treatment, biological wastewater treatment. And we compared the environmental impacts and benefits of that. We looked at the overall costs of these. These costs, again, are looking at if everybody was connected. Those systems, those collection systems would serve that whole service area. Everybody would be connected. That's what those costs were based on. I think we've. Yeah, okay, go ahead to the next one. We're on to Riverside.
Meaning everybody in that zone all get hooked into the system. That's what it would cost to do that.
Yeah.
To get every house tied in.
Right.
Which isn't necessarily what we're gonna do, but.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're
Big
going to look at some smaller subsets of that, you know. I'm just trying to breeze through these.
Yeah, this is helpful, this is helpful.
Spoiler alert, that's what we're getting to.
Yeah.
But this is, just looking back at what we looked at to start from. And then Riverside Village, just a few options that we looked at here. And the preferred one being a single disposal system on the middle school site. Go ahead to the maps. This is one alternative that we looked at with a disposal site on a private lot on Raceway Road, and one at the middle school site. There is some additional treatment beyond the septic tanks needed for the flows in Riverside. Recirculating sand filter system probably would provide enough treatment that there's a lot to prove that, but it would probably provide enough treatment to do the disposal at the rates you need to there, rather than have a full tertiary treatment system. And this is the preferred alternative, which is collecting it all to one location at the middle school site. And then we think it's not fixed costs in this one. They're after the commercial. Okay. So in the commercial district, which we originally were looking at in combination with the Riverside, we ended up splitting it. We looked at a couple of alternatives to serve the commercial district, and the preferred one, there's not a strong leaning one way or the other, but both sites involve a disposal system on North Main Street, and there were some advantages to alternative two, which was having them on South Main Street and North Main Street as the preferred alternative. We also have given some thought to municipal water service to the commercial district, and this study is focused on wastewater. It's funded through the Clean Water State Revolving Fund, but if there's a desire to go on and look at water in any of these, we'll talk about that also. So this is a blown up version of what we brought in before. Thought it was easier to see the Riverside and commercial we had on the same maps previously. This gives you a little better look at the alternative one, which is having the systems off Route 15 and North Main Street, and the next one is off South Main Street and North Main Street. I'm sorry, I had that backwards on the preferred alternative. Alternative one was the preferred one. Commercial district. Box.
So that's the preferred one there.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Alternative three is the extension of municipal water. We don't have a layout of a municipal water system here. I think if I were looking at the presenter notes that everybody was looking at earlier, I could recall exactly, but there is water reasonably close by to the commercial district, and that's a possibility that could be looked into. We did have survey results from landowners in the commercial district that talked about the challenges of, for instance, doing the fire protection they need for their buildings off of a well. There's a lot of volume and flow needed for larger commercial buildings, and it's pretty expensive to do that on your own. That was one of the survey feedback results. We looked at the environmental impacts and benefits there as well, and overall costs. So not a lot of users in the commercial district, the costs are lower, but we'll see later the cost per land owner are actually fairly high. Go ahead to, this is where I'll spend more time going through. So, because the town, one of the things that we look at is, do you have the technical, financial, and managerial capacity to run and operate a system? You guys don't currently have a town wastewater or water system. You have the fire districts that were mentioned earlier. So there's some experience and some, people, infrastructure and billing and things like that you need to have in place. So to start, just for those reasons to start, you would want to look at some smaller alternatives potentially till you got your experience and systems in place. And we looked at a couple of things that in the 60% report, we had only looked at the pumped wastewater systems, the step systems for one of the study areas, but in the 90%, we have looked at that alternative for all of the study areas. And we also looked at what if you didn't serve everybody in the study areas, is there a way to, justify, make sense where you should start? And so the criteria on this slide are what we use to basically score properties for how badly do you need wastewater going by these properties. And we did a really simple ranking system of if they had one of these conditions, conflict between their well field and the leach field.
Of their personal leach field.
Right.
Yeah.
Or their neighbors. Their neighbors might be too close to. If the parcels were small enough so they were really going to be constrained to replace their own septic system, if their leach fields are more than 30 years old or of unknown age. If they're unknown age, they're typically older than 30 years also. If they're within a groundwater source protection zone, if the soil conditions are really challenging for doing a wastewater system on their own property. And we also marked if they had interest in doing something with their property because providing for growth and infill and housing were a priority of the towns. And then parcels with, we hadn't really looked at this previously, but in our updated, we looked at parcels with floodplain, not floodplain, and leach conflicts with their leach fields. Go ahead to the next. So this is what the map looks like when you do that ranking. And on the screen, I'm going to be pointing at different colors. The purple color one is properties that scored, that had one of those conditions. And if they had two, it got a blue color. If it's got a little orange highlighting around it, they've mentioned an interest in future development, or the town has said it's a property that might have a development potential just based on, input from planning and folks. Green and I guess we'll say orange are ones that had, 3 or 4 of those criteria. So we just use the colored map to look at, if we look in Jericho Center, what's the priority area to serve? And it really boils down to from the circle, right?
The center, the green,
from the green north. So our reduced alternative doesn't come down to the the south end now. We'll look at that. So the same, giving that background, I'll spend less time talking about the next one. Go ahead. So Jericho Corners, essentially the area that we looked at, that we looked at prioritizing serving ones that had 2 or more. If you do 1 or more, it's the whole area. So if you kind of look at serving most of the 2 pluses, we're taking off this area.
Removing, not serving it.
Not serving it in the reduced alternative that we looked at. And that's the Snowflake, can't read it, but,
Snowflake Griswold area.
yeah, Snowflake Griswold area. Okay, go ahead to, so this is Riverside in the commercial district. There really wasn't much to do in the commercial district there weren't substantial close by clusters of where the 2 pluses were. So we don't have a reduced alternative for the commercial district. But in Riverside we do, and we drop off some of the area out Raceway Road. I think that's a little oversimplified, but that's what we did. It's a lot easier to see from here. If you could go ahead to the next one. So with that, this is what the collection systems look like. And you can see on our mapping, the green lines, this is Jericho Center. We're calling it scenario 2, phase 1. Because you still could serve these areas. It just means you're not starting with them. Certainly could extend the system later to serve the whole study area if you want to do this, just looking at if this was the first phase of what you did. So you can see we cut off our piping here, like I mentioned, and the green lines are gravity sewer lines. The orange yellow dots are proposed pump stations because they're low points in the system. And then the purple dash lines are still force mains. And we have everything getting to an end pump station and then going to the sites for disposal north of town. And that's with septic tanks for treatment alternative. This is the same alternative without the gravity collection system. It's all force mains, individual pump stations after people's septic tanks. And why the costs come down with that, there are a few reasons. The capital costs come down, and we look at the life cycle costs because you have pumps to run and everything too. The capital costs come down because you can run 1 pipe. With a gravity collection system, you're going downhill until you get to a low point, and then you have a pump station and you have to pump the wastewater back. So it's 2 pipes. You also following grade, the pipes, you have to have manholes to change directions and even vertically change directions. To put bends in the pipe, you have to have a manhole. So you save some with a force main system like this. You still have clean outs for the pipes, but you don't have to have a manhole structure that somebody could get down in. And the force mains can just, like water mains, can just follow the contours of the land. So a little less expensive to do it that way, construction costs wise. Okay. So this is the collection system for Jericho Corners with this area not being connected. It's the same piping layout we looked at before, just reduced by there. You've got multiple pump stations to collect this whole area. There are a lot of ups and downs through Jericho Corners. This was the preferred alternative over the others because the forest lot, there was feedback we didn't want to disturb that, and So that's why it's all, the preferred alternative was to go to a single site at the school. Go ahead. This is the same collection system, but with the step collection, set tanks with effluent pumping. And again, same difference. It's just a force main system with individual pumps connecting to it. Go ahead to the next. For Riverside, this is the alternative with the schools going to the school site. And the collection system is ending here on Raceway Road with a pump station there. Looked at this area for quite a while. We end up needing 3 pump stations. Just can't. Maybe if you go deeper or something, it might be able to get that down to 1, but down to 2. But at least at this stage of the design, I couldn't get away from 3 pump stations there. 1 over here, 1 over here, and 1 here. This can allow you to connect Underhill, who has expressed interest in being considered in your study.
Says who? Why do you? I'm not trying to confuse me, but it's like says who? Like how? Like who told you that Underhill's interested? How do you find that out?
Town staff told me, and I don't know where they.
Jericho town staff?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Not Paul. It was Linda, I think.
Thanks, John.
Or or it could have been.
But it wasn't Underhill unsolicited said, hey, I'm
No.
doing this.
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was through you were
Underhill didn't reach out to me directly, no.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I haven't had direct correspondence
Yeah,
with them. That's right. And they are, in some ways, it makes sense to think about them, because you have if you look way back on our early slides, there's a designated village center that doesn't stop at the town line.
Right.
Yeah.
So that, if you're serving that area, that makes sense on paper to
combined.
some people. And this designated place, if you recall, is the one that was below the statewide median household income also. So you'll have some funding advantages if you did that. You also get points for regional projects serving more than just your location. So you get points towards funding for that. I don't know if there are other potential, if it brings more money or if it just ranks you higher. I think it depends on the year also in that case. So that same, and that same scoring, in my opinion, would apply if you did connect Ethan Allen Firing Range to a system at Jericho Center. That'd be
Another.
I think it would be, we can make the argument for sure that it's a regional benefit, not just serving your town. Okay, we can go on to the next. Same system with the pump method of collecting the wastewater effluent.
Can one see in that picture what houses are being served?
It's everybody adjacent to the pipes, so it's it's
Only, so it's not the loop down below, it's not,
Right.
what you call it, not it's like a Valley's Edge, it's not them.
right.
Okay.
Although if they, technically you could, if they have, I can't remember if they have their own collection system, if they're all individual, I think they might be individual. But if they did have their own collection system, that technically you could, if you allowed it, you could have anybody connect if they pump to it. It's a lot easier with these step systems. It's a lot easier to agree to connect somebody because all they have to do is put in their own pump and connect to your line. They don't have to be a fill of it.
It is individual systems at Valley's Edge. I'm a resident there.
Okay, thank you. That's what I thought. I walked out there and that was my impression. Okay. To the commercial district, this is the preferred alternative, which was 1. But it's not a reduced footprint, and we Also looked at this one for the step collection approach, which is less piping on the next. The purple piping. Pressure, connecting and rotating by pressure. Okay, we can go on to the next. So, this is another difference between a gravity sewer collection system and a pump system. In the state wastewater rules, you have to, in a gravity sewer system, at some point, you start to have leaky pipes and leaky manholes. And water can start trickling into your system, stormwater, rainwater that infiltrates it. It's called infiltration and inflow. And the infiltration allowance, you have to set up some of your usable capacity aside for that. And you can't count that you have that capacity. So there's a difference in how many people you can connect if you did that versus a pump system. In this, there's no requirement to allow for infiltration in a pump system because the pipes are under pressure. And to get water to go into it would be a challenge. You can get water to go out of it, which would be a different kind of problem. But what this table shows you is the difference in how many users you could connect. This column on the right is an ERU is an equivalent residential unit, which is basically one single family home. So in the step system, you could connect 22 more homes in Riverside than you could if you did a gravity sewer system. Same thing in the commercial district. I'm pretty sure that's not a typo. I think I've rechecked myself on that before. That ends up being 22 in the commercial district, fewer, 58 fewer in Jericho Corners, and 38 fewer in Jericho Center. So that when you're looking at the efficiency of costs in building the system, that's another thing that lends towards the step system. In your case, it's not every case that's the better method, but in this case, it ends up being when we compare them. Go ahead to the next. So then we've compared all of those alternatives in terms of life cycle costs. The capital costs on the top are the project cost summary. That is the opinion of probable construction costs plus the soft costs.
Yep.
So
it's the whole number, not
the whole number. So 6.5 million connecting the town only in a gravity sewer system in Jericho Center. If you added in the firing range, 9.1 million. Part of that is because there's more treatment needed to bring in the firing range.
Is that a total number or is it additional? Is it an additional 9 million or total? 9
No,
million?
total number. So it's the net difference of
Right.
2.7.
Whatever.
Yeah.
dollars per house.
So that includes their force main coming in because in
Since
discussions
everybody joins on day one.
with the firing range, they can't do anything outside their property. Basically, they said that they're what they would be allowed to build and fund can only go to their property line. So to connect them, you have to put in the force main to bring them over.
You have to go to them. They
From there, yeah. You go to their property line, so we'd meet them there. So that's what, there's a force main cost in there to bring them in. So the ones in the middle are doing this by gravity. The ones on the right are doing this with the pumped system, the step system. We add in operation and maintenance costs. Those include replacement of things that fail in the 30-year period that we looked at. It includes the costs of the electricity to pump. When you have a lot more pumps in a step system, you got a higher electric costs. We have replacement of those pumps because those pumps don't last 30 years. Those are factored in. We even have some administrative costs because to manage a pump system with this many connections, in our opinion, is a part-time job. Added on.
And that's all in the
On
O&M.
top of the operator's costs.
That's all in the O&M.
Yeah. Costs of operating the system. And salvage value is probably not worth talking a lot about, but basically after 30 years, there's an assumed value of, if you put in this infrastructure, it's still, it's not worth zero after 30 years. If it's got some useful life. And so in the net present value of these, that gets counted on the plus side. It's got some value still. So the net present value is the capital cost. Let me make sure I get this right.
Capital plus O&M.
Capital plus the O&M minus the salvage value. Thank you. Yes, that's almost there.
Sorry.
And then just to compare these, because you're connecting different numbers of users, this is it's a way to sort of normalize the costs. If you had 55 equivalent residential units connecting to the system, comes out to 145,000 per home when you're doing the town only. When you add in the firing range, they're a substantially higher.
Yeah, right, 227?
I don't think that's right.
That seems humongous.
I think based on I'm gonna have to look at that in the final report. I don't think that's right. Because we had a higher number initially from them, but I think it ended up being roughly equal to the town. So I've got to relook at these numbers, but it's still going to shake out that the most efficient is to do a step system with the firing range also connected, but it won't be this favorable. I'm pretty sure. Maybe I'm wrong, but I've got to double check this.
But you feel in your head, you feel like it's double or like it's roughly the same as the town? Like 55 goes to 110-ish?
That's what I'm remembering from the flows. I remember when we revised the flows after we went through some discussions with them, it came out to a smaller number that in my head, it's a lot more equal to this. So I think that's why I'm thinking that's off the old number. Okay, so we can go on to the next. This is for Jericho Corners. The same way of breaking out costs. Total net present value 25 to 26 million, with 339 to almost 400 connections. Net present value per user of 64,000 to 76,000, and so the step system ends up being the most efficient. And when we're comparing these for the funding agency's purposes, it's really this line that we're looking at for what's the most cost-effective system. But I think this is important context for you guys. Because we can see how this compares to the next one, which is Riverside. This ends up being the most efficient in terms of cost per user. And I should point out some of the notes on the bottom that these costs per users don't have any grants or subsidies. You wouldn't build this without grants or subsidies. You're not going to get nobody's ever gotten 100% in, since the 70s or 80s or something. But but you wouldn't do this without some grants or subsidies, and those aren't factored into this cost on the bottom line. We talked about the infiltration allowance. And it does assume that, there's a lot to be proven in this. We're pretty far from being 100% confident in what treatment and disposal capacity will be. And this is assuming everybody's connecting when you divide it by these numbers. So.
Are those numbers just currently existing ERUs, or is that planning on future growth?
I think what these are is you don't know enough at this stage to know who's going to connect, who wants to, who doesn't want to. And this is really just looking at what are we saying the capacity is, how many homes does that equate to? So that could be a mix of existing and future.
Because there aren't 377 homes in that area.
Right. I don't think that's right. In Riverside, no, they're not. So that definitely includes housing growth to get to that capacity. And this is a way of looking at a smaller phase. This is how you could start. But when you start looking at who wants to connect, you could make it, you could do smaller subsets. This is just one that makes sense on paper based on the priorities that I think the town would have for priorities. Okay, I think we can, I said this would be a lot shorter than this, sorry. So we can keep going.
I'll keep asking questions, I apologize.
That's all right. The commercial district, it's same type of thing, very inefficient in terms of net present value per ERU. It's one of the higher costs there. It's just spread out with larger lots. These are the non-monetary factors. There's some explanation in the report of what each of these categories on the left mean. And but in terms of non-monetary factors, the Jericho Center and Riverside score the highest when you do relative scores of these criteria. We have information on potential funding alternatives in the report. We don't have a discussion of the Northern Border Regional Commission. I was noticing in there, but we'll add that before we finalize the report. And one that is the most traditional are the first two. There are opportunities to get funding from the others, and the one on the bottom is an option at any time, really. For awareness, there is an individual on-site septic systems loan program at the state, and that really is to help people who really need it. You've got a failed system. You asked for financing from a bank or something and been denied, and then this loan program will fund them replacing their septic system with a subsidized individual loan.
But that won't help, the town can't.
No, that's just really for awareness that under current conditions, that's something that's accessible to residents. Yeah, individuals who are in that. So the one that's a little bit unique here is the Defense Community Infrastructure Program. And I haven't had a system funded through that program, but we put a bunch of information in the report. I encourage you to read it, but in my opinion, it reads pretty well that you would be a community that could apply for and potentially get that type of funding. Obviously, if you're connecting the firing range, it's logical, but because you'd be providing wastewater infrastructure that benefits the base. But the grant program does say it's even, if you can make the case that people who work at the base live in town, that's also you're a qualified community. So that's something that you could potentially tap into. You can't really bank on it because you can't apply for it until you're shovel ready. So you've completed your design. It's ready to be built. you're ready to send it out for bids and build the project, you won't know until then whether you would get that funding, but I don't know if there's a way to get inside scoop on that, but that's the main drawback that I saw, that you just can't count on that. So you have to do that one, you have to go on faith for a while. But the Clean Water State Revolving Fund and their programs are what your planning is being paid for right now out of. USDA Rural Development is often used on projects like this during construction as well. And so is the Clean Water State Revolving Fund and the others to some extent too. Go ahead. So what we included, we've talked about that the step systems ended up being the most efficient. The most cost effective looks like the Jericho, Riverside, and Underhill combined system. And the second most cost effective was the step collection system serving the Jericho Center and Ethan Allen firing range. They both scored the highest on non-monetary as well. Regional benefit we talked about, and the last bullet, if you the two areas that don't currently have municipal water are the commercial district and Jericho Center. And if town wants to pursue those do provide a wastewater benefit where if the wells are eliminated, it gets rid of current conflicts between wells and leach fields. But it probably makes the most sense to apply under the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund to do work under that if the town wants to seriously look at providing water to those two locations. Go on to the next. I got a bullet list of qualifiers, things that could really affect the feasibility here. The level of interest of people. You can have archaeologically sensitive sites. We haven't tested these disposal sites. There has been actually quite a bit of test pitting done at the middle school. So we do actually have more information on the hydraulic capacity there, but there's a pretty rigorous permitting process to prove how much you can put in the ground there still to be faced. So this is preliminary is what the first five bullets mean. Sorry, could you just go back once? I hadn't really re-looked at my notes on the bottom. So so the next steps we recommend to decide if you want to move forward with anything here, we think it'd be important to have additional discussions with the preferred disposal site landowners and the town of Underhill and the firing range to vet the two most feasible scenarios. Some evaluation on the ground of the preferred disposal sites and getting more comfort with their disposal capacity. And then outreach to people in the community about whether they want to connect or build the housing and connect. And those are some of the most important factors. I think they go on to the next page. So yeah, okay. Those are a few of the key things we would recommend. The next step would be turning this feasibility study into a preliminary engineering report, which is basically doing those few things on the previous page and completing there's preliminary design of the preferred alternative would be what goes into the preliminary engineering report. You also produce an environmental report at that stage. That's called the end of step one of the planning process for the funding agency. And then if you still want to build a system somewhere, then it would go into final design and permitting, which is called step 2, state system. And step 3 has been in construction.
Thank you. Thank you. And just so that people can understand that, well, we come to the 100%. I mean, if this is 90%, you just do your finishing up. At the next select board meeting, we have a representative from the state Clean Water Revolving Fund that will come and talk to us about the next steps and process and how you fund things.
Yep. I saw Lynette was on there. It's I know she's still on.
And so, we'll have a couple questions from the select board before we open it up to the public. Then, if you have any questions, yeah.
I guess I don't really have questions. I mean, my take is, I think, as you pointed out, Riverside is the most feasible of all of them. You know, a big part of that involves getting the land, getting the willingness from the school. This is the biggest risk to me. The numbers on the slide look different than the numbers in the thing that I reviewed, so I was a little confused by that, but that's probably something that I just misread when I was reviewing the packet. But I guess I don't really have a direct question.
The other thing is that the school, all 3 schools just did stormwater projects on
Yes.
the property.
And we got the information from them because we have talked to them during this, and so they knew we were at least looking at them as possible sites in the study, and they haven't agreed to anything. But they did share their stormwater plans, and that was another change actually from the 60% to the 90% because we got updated permit plans for the stormwater at the middle school. And the available area became a little smaller than after we added that in.
I wondered about that, you know.
Yeah.
Because I had gotten the information, you know, a while back that from, you know, the permit, what it was.
Yeah.
I have a couple questions. And I have I read parts of the report, questions from that. Just as a general question, in reading the report, it looked like Jericho Center is heading for a problem in terms of amount of land they have available for septic systems that private landowners have because of the water situation. I felt like these 2 pages, I was like, oh God, Jericho Center is like potentially in big trouble.
That's why.
Or but like the citizens maybe, they got aging infrastructure, they've got aging personal septic sites and not a lot of space to go anywhere.
Yep.
There's quite a few that also replaced them, but the other thing is that's why water is more effective there in terms of.
Right, well, that's what I'm asking, that's what.
Yeah.
The fact is that's what Matt would like to see because these are historic homes too that would burn like worm.
I agree. I think I've kind of held those up at the last meeting of the center probably has the most problems, potential problems. And Riverside has, you know, the most potential for growth and housing compared to center. And then the corners it's so many lots, but it's really carved up a lot already. So it's not as much potential for.
And that follows
growth.
your thing
So,
about leach shields and well shields. So if you,
Yeah.
you know, get water there, you've freed up a certain amount of land.
yes, the center has the most small lots with their leach fields overshadowed by their own or somebody else as well, according to the mapping.
I have a note to myself here that like that Riverside benefits doing wastewater in the Riverside area benefits the town most in terms the town as an entity looking to create economic development options. But the Jericho Corner work, the Jericho Center work benefits the citizens living there who might be in trouble at some point.
Yes.
So it's like water's more.
And yeah, I agree.
That's what I checked
And-
my thinking and make sure I wasn't missing something of it.
No, and that probably partly influenced why we are saying we recommend proceed with more planning of both of those locations. Partly because of that, but partly also if you've got a couple of them moving along and you identify that, well, there's a disposal site available at this one and it's not at the other one. You know, you might find that one of them has a big roadblock and then you're not just done. That's why I was thinking those two, they have competing high level priorities and score pretty highly and can be done efficiently, I think, with the right funding. But that gives you a little insurance if you find a roadblock.
And then my other question was going back a whole bunch to the ERU numbers. And I realized at the end, those are not actual homes that will be served. It's it's number of homes that could be served by this system at this capacity. So it's not saying, oh, you'll have 50 people on the system. It's saying you could have up to 50 people or houses
Right.
on the system with this capacity.
Right.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
And for instance, you wouldn't build the whole thing if you only had
8 houses.
8 houses that wanted to connect. It'd be a huge cost
Another
per
capacity
user.
on you.
Yeah.
There's 2 people on. Sabina and Chuck has a question.
Are we gonna go to the floor or they're considered the floor also?
I'm just letting you know that they have
So
questions.
what we, so we'll take one from there and then one from here.
Sure. Sabina, do you want to pose your question?
Yes. Just have to find the buttons here. So this is a hypothetical, like an extreme hypothetical, but I'm on the Conservation Commission and we are thinking about locations in the town to plant trees. And one of the spots that we're looking at is on Brown's Trace near the new multimodal path. So that would kind of be along your purple dotted line leading down to the yellow boxes there for the Jericho Center preferred alternative. So my question is, would the planting of trees in the right of way along Brown's Trace on the east side of the road be totally out of the question at any point in the future if this goes through? Or would it be something that could be, worked around if anything went forward?
It's a good thought. Certainly Vermont villages have street trees in a lot of places. I think generally in the design, you try to avoid taking out street trees, but sometimes you can't avoid it. It really depends on the location. The step systems provide the best chance of avoiding trees because a force main pipe like that, where you're not making a connection for a home, the pipe that just goes, that's the big shared one, that could be installed by a directional boring underneath trees. Potentially.
Well, so right now there are none. So I mean, does the pipe go under the road or where does it go in relation to the road?
If it's a state highway, it won't go under the
So
road
this is
at
on
all.
Brown's Trace.
Yeah, but there are some state roads here. In the town roads, it would be up to the town whether you would want to allow the piping to be in the road. Typically, we try to design them off the shoulder, but in the right of way.
Okay.
But it's not always possible. There are also utility poles. There's a lot of constraints you can get into, sidewalks that you try to avoid the best you can. But in villages that are already built, it's a challenge.
All right. So I guess before we move on with any ideas about trees, we should check in with the town to see where the status of that particular wastewater project might be in the future. Right, because we haven't planted anything yet, but I don't want to plant trees and then 5 years later find out that everything is going to be dug up. So I think you answered my question though. Thank you.
Yep.
All right, did you have one, Robert?
Yeah, quick question. Can we go back to the operation cost slide? Is that possible? Swing back to that, one of those.
There's one.
There's one that was more comprehensive there. I'll go with that one. So, the cost, second line down, the cost, when you look at the total cost of the project, you're talking operational costs as high as a third or even higher, going forward. This is just a guess, if you will, as far as
Yeah, so
cost per year or.
they're, what those are is it's a total of the costs over 30 years.
That total amount is, or that's per year, every year for 30 years?
No, it's not $4 million a year, Tom.
So
It's
how would you, so if I was a taxpayer, which I am, how would I try to break down what per year that's going to amount to?
yeah,
How would I?
that's a good question. If you do go on to the preliminary engineering report, what we produce in that is based on what you're thinking there might be for you. We'll have more information about like who might actually connect.
Yeah.
And then we're boiling it down to, if you get about this level of grant funding and you have this many people connected, we do provide, here's a range of what we think the cost per user would be.
Okay.
We just don't have that detail yet.
I'm a layperson. It just seems we're
Yeah.
talking about what I'm looking at, a third of the cost is operational costs. I mean,
That's over 30 years.
That seems right, but that still seems excessive. The other thing is, two other quick questions. You mentioned, okay, where I live, I'm not gonna be part of this or whatever. So how do taxpayers outside these zones contribute to this when there's no direct benefit? I understand and I appreciate the concern for the benefit of the town. But if I'm outside this area, and I'm paying into these systems and I have no great direct benefit, I mean, how do you propose these people inside these areas pay much more because they're granted these services and we're not? And just another quick question, I won't get into the residential water issue, but I'm extremely concerned. These are legitimate concerns, stormwater, no question. But there's no discussion, there's no formulation about residential water at all. And they kind of run into the same sectional formats as the stormwater system. So I'm even wondering if you're starting to do this, can you do a small section at residential water and stormwater at the same time to make it more cost effective? I mean, that should be something considered. But my main concern is if you live outside the area and you're going to pay taxes into the system and you're not going to benefit directly, I mean, how do you work that out mathematically? I mean, that's, yeah, I think a lot of people in town would have that question.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
And the other last question, sorry, you mentioned also those that want to be connected into the system. So if you have the system running through an area and some people say, no, I don't want to be in this system, how is it going to be cost effective if say like 6 out of 10 say, no, don't put me in it, but you still have to pay for the line to go through for the others? I mean, I don't see how you can be selective as far as we're putting it through, you have to accept it, or only a few can accept it, and then you're just gonna drive the cost up considerably, in my view. That's pretty much it. I got those,
Yep.
I think they gotta be addressed, and
Well, absolutely, those are very important
Yes.
considerations, and there are horror stories about other towns with that.
Yes. So, good questions. The first part being,
first was the operational.
operational costs per user. So capital costs, So the capital costs, whatever the grants or subsidies are that you are able to access come off that top line. And the rest of it gets into a construction loan that's heavily subsidized. Pretty, say it probably would be 2 to 4% interest over 30 years, I'm guessing. It's, don't guarantee it's
At least in my concern.
So the capital costs, so that's that's all that's a loan, and then the operation and maintenance costs, those are divided by 30 and added to that. And so your loan payment plus the operation costs divided by 30 is your payment per year, and divided by the number of users is another part of your question. So the town has to decide a bunch of things. And one of them is how to finance the system. If you have favorable grants and subsidies, there are systems in Vermont that are funded only by the people who are connected to them.
Okay.
If you can't make the system viable and the town still wants viable to be paid only by the users, and the town still is adamant they want to do the project, then some towns pay for some of the project out of the tax base. And they people like your select board have to come to a decision about those type of things. What's the best way to do this for our community, and the equitable way to make it, to measure, well, what's the benefit to people outside? Here are the number of town buildings and what they do, and other community things. They can look at it, and or they could say it's like, everybody pays. Different towns do different things, and so I can't officially answer that.
It's just the first time I've ever heard that some people along the system can opt out or not go into it.
And that's what I'm getting to also, is that what determines who connects to this is partly based on an ordinance that the town would form. And the ordinance could say that everybody who's within 500 feet of the pipe has to connect. Or it could say everybody who's within 500 feet, and everybody who's within 500 feet has the option of connecting. But if you ever have to replace your leach field, you have to connect if you're within 500 feet. And they can say, so there are a bunch of different ways they could do an ordinance to decide who connects. And that's all up to the town also, but it is something we talk about in later stages, but it's ultimately a town decision. And it's good, those are the important questions to people.
The last question that we do.
Well, I think we need to go to the deal online.
Yeah.
Okay.
Next.
Chuck, do you have a question?
Yeah, I have a question and a couple observations. One is, I presume you looked at connecting to Richmond from Jericho Center and the range.
Yes.
Seems like many, many more people could hook up if it went down to Richmond, and probably with a lower capital cost. What were your conclusions on that?
Yep, we have looked at that, and it isn't as cost effective as the preferred alternative that we put in. So that's in the report too, but
I believe that may be true in serving 58 homes or something under than that. But it seems like if it went down to Richmond, it could serve 200 or 300 homes. I mean, was your cost effectiveness conclusion based only on serving the homes in Jericho Center? Or
Richmond doesn't have capacity. They're trying to figure out how to move from their own septic system to their growth areas where they want to see housing as well. I know that they.
But we did look.
I know they want to save some space for themselves.
We did run the numbers also with the firing range connecting and going down there just to see. We do have that in our report. I
Okay,
don't know if I have it right here.
And, sorry, could I ask?
so the second, well, observation, I guess, is that the densest housing in Jericho is not in the village centers and will probably be generally the case forever, with the possible exception of some apartment buildings in Riverside. It seems like there are some fairly large developments that are kind of 40, 45 years old within arm's reach of Riverside. Also, I think for example, the foothills. I also think that probably the biggest potential for new housing in Jericho Center is up around the high school. And it just seems like the boundaries that maybe the town has given you are rigid and not strategic in terms of adding housing. And I hope that in the last 10%, we can be a little more strategic about how to add more units to the fixed cost and be strategic about adding area that has the potential for adding a lot of housing. There's not much potential for adding housing in Jericho Center proper in the rigid boundary, but nearby, there's quite a bit of potential. And it seems like the system ought to take that into account.
Yeah, that's a way to make systems more affordable is to connect more users for sure.
That's guidance that you need to receive from the town. It's not something you can really just answer on the fly, but
yeah, it won't be.
It's time
it
to
won't be something we can adjust in the remaining 10% of the project, but it is something that could be looked at in the preliminary engineering report if that's what the town wanted to do, is look at relook at the service area, serving any that aren't in it currently. Those boundaries can move.
And I also just want to weigh in on this question of who pays. One of the main reasons we're doing this is because it's the town policy to reserve about 86% of town for the wealthy and large lots, and to concentrate low and middle income people in a small area. So the benefit that people around town are getting by building these systems is no neighbors and exclusive zoning. So we either have to find a place where people of low and middle income people can live, and the town has decided it's going to be in a small area in the village centers, which is why we have to have wastewater and water in those areas. If the town is not willing to do that, and if the town's not willing to pay for that, then zoning needs to be changed to allow average people to live in more places in Jericho.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
And there's one more person
Yeah,
online.
one more person.
Anybody here?
Okay.
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 Rosemary, go ahead.
It's Rose Merrill. I live at 11 Valley's Edge, and I had a specific question. I think it was in Appendix I, but I can't, each map doesn't say what appendix it's from anyway. I had a question specifically about the pink areas in Valley's Edge. Interest in future development at parcel or potential future infill per town. I know that the speaker said quickly what that meant, but I still don't understand. And I am one of the houses in the pink. So I was wondering what that means.
I'll try to go back to that.
Yeah.
It's,
on the needs.
It's priority municipal wastewater connection parcels was one place where it was. And there was another map. But
Is that on the
That's
slides
the
or is that in
total.
the report?
it was in the report.
Okay, because
Yeah, here we go. So go ahead to,
Oh, yeah.
because she said Valley's
Still
Edge,
see
wasn't
it
it?
there.
That's
This one
the
right
big
here.
area, right?
The lighter areas are pink areas, so
Okay.
that's number 1 and number 11. Valley's
Yeah,
Edge,
okay.
the other side. And I just wondered what that means, really.
So we did a survey, back when we started the study, and I'm guessing in that area, what we got for a survey for those 4 lots that look like they have the highlighting. Somebody said that they had an interest in doing something more or different with their property if the wastewater capacity became available. That could mean, anything. Those answers varied. We do have the study, like what people commented on in that section in the study, in the,
Yeah, in the report.
survey part of our report.
Yeah.
So it could have been like, oh, I put a deck on my property
So,
because then the leach field wouldn't be there. So, it could be a number of different things.
An ADU even.
Yeah, it could be an ADU, it could be, different people had different answers for that, but it's basically if wastewater capacity became available, they gave us an answer that said, we might do something with our property because of that.
okay, well, I guess I didn't know, wait.
Yeah, no, you're not, we hear you.
Now you are.
Oh, now you're muted.
Sorry. I guess I didn't understand that. I did fill in the survey, but I don't think that my property is going to accommodate a tiny home or something like that. It's a small lot. The other question, thank you. The other question was a bigger, broader one, and I haven't been to other meetings recently, and it's just the overall timeline. You're doing this feasibility report, and then there's the engineer's report. And then does it go to as a ballot measure for people to decide, or is it decided by the select board if we go forward? I mean, are we talking from all of this preliminary work and all what you need to actually install? Are we talking 5 years, 3 years, 10 years? Just a ballpark idea. Go ahead.
I think you're in the right range, 3 to 10 years. 3 would be very fast. Yes, there would be a bond vote needed if you were to build a system.
Okay. All right, well, that answers my questions. Thank you.
Yep.
We're on year 50, we're on year 53.
Am I right, the 1, 2, 3 provide, that's how many of those previous indicators?
Criteria.
So it wouldn't have to have been, we might expand our property. It could be something else that made them.
Yeah, but I think she is talking about one of these 4, and they have this little highlight around them.
Gotcha.
And that's
okay.
this thing.
Yep. Okay. Thank you. Sorry.
Yep.
I am. I don't have a copy of it, so I must.
Yeah, I could look back if I knew your lot number, but it could have even been that you wanted to put a garden over where your leach field is or something. I don't, yeah. It's a lot of different answers there.
Okay, well, I appreciate the complexity of all of this, and thanks to all of you.
Thank you. All right, Jim.
I've been observing this type of stuff now for over 45 years, and I'd like to say that I think it's really important that when we have a presentation that's as comprehensive as this is, that we have quality materials and functioning display for communication. It's almost impossible to understand what's being done and what's being said. And when you you print this out, 300 pages or whatever it is, it's also impossible that we've got what I would call maple sap. And we need to distill this down so that it can become an intelligible, usable product. And the devil is in the details. That I'd like to say, push back, this isn't, in my opinion, a 90% report. It might be 78, it might be 83, but it's not a 90. There was a 200% variance between $44,000 and $139,000 per system. And we're not sure whether that's right or wrong. The report is not finished. It needs to be refined. And I suggest that the select board consider having a challenge committee. I feel that this is an orphan and it does not have an owner who fully understands it and has challenged the premise and understands all the algorithms with monstrous numbers. There may be some jewels in here that are very, very important to the town, but you cannot discern it from the volume of material and the quality of the presentation. And I'll just take Jericho Center, not to privilege it, but we have a huge fire risk in Jericho Center. You've got 200-year-old large buildings and you have no fire protection other than from my property. And so if we don't define what our objectives are, and then we have the Rivers' property, which is 125 acres of potentially developable land that's also refinable. And we have the Ethan Allen firing range that could potentially provide 50 to 60% of the cost of this. And if we push back and say, oops, we're not really at 90%, we're at less than that. Put a 3 or 4 person challenge committee together that becomes the owner of it, similar to when the Underhill Jericho Fire Department was challenged, Chuck and the rest of the guys jumped into it. Get an owner for this project now, get the owners to look at it, work with Du Bois and King, a nice firm that's owned by the employees, and produce a summary that says, here is something that is actionable. Instead of speculating and coming in with $45 million worth of expenses, we say, here's an actionable thing. We met with the Ethan Allen firing range. We have an identifiable person from the Ethan Allen firing range. We understand what those rules are, and we can simultaneously bring their sewage out and bring the water with it, put the fire protection into the center, and we can also refine a build it project off of Plains Road on the Rivers' property, and you end up with a usable, implementable thing that will solve a lot of the problems that we're talking about. But we have a very bad record of piling up stacks of studies because we don't push back and refine them to become usable, intelligible, actionable things. So I think the select board can either take the Economic Development Committee or the people from the Development Review Board and pull together a committee that challenges Du Bois and King to condense this down into 3 or 4 bottles of syrup that in fact then can be actioned, put into a budget, because I think there's probably some jewels in here that if you can understand it, that you'll actually do something with it. And I think there's a great opportunity to accomplish critical objectives and do something sooner, but probably on a smaller scale that gets us moving in that right direction. Mary Ellis gave us the land 26 years ago, and we put a sidewalk on it. I think there's a great opportunity.
All right. Is there any more questions? No.
Well, thank you very much for your time and your effort.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
Yes, thank you.
So you're done now until we tell you here are the next piece. You can't do the last 10% until we say.
I'd love to get any comments back. Anybody that wants to review the report and provide input on it. Being the one that identified the issue with my table, I think I know where that issue is. I don't know where that comes from. That was a little insulting.
We'll get
But
back. We'll get back.
and also you mentioned that there was something different from the report, and I can tell
Probably
you.
my understanding.
No, I think it is. I think there is. There was because I found in table 17 in our report, if that, so that might be where you, that there were.
I thought the Riverside project was 22 million, not 15. I swear
They were-
It was over 20.
It was over
20
20,
plus.
yeah,
And on
I
the
think,
slide, I think it was.
but maybe that
15.
was because that was the first,
That's the
the original.
phase one, right? So the phase one is a different cost than the overall.
Yeah, there was a table that you.
But there
showed.
was a table 17 in the report that I did find,
In the 60% or the 90%?
in the 90%, that when I was working on the slides, I found an error,
Riverside.
but it was in the opinion of probable cost column, not the product cost summary.
Oh,
Yeah, I have the slides now as
We
well,
have
so
that
I can,
corrected.
I can look at those and compare them to what I can't find the
Because I know it
document.
was
So if you
higher,
find it,
it was higher when you did
send
the
it to me and I'll-
60%, because that, you didn't
Go through
separate
it.
out, the phase one, phase two. So that, that made a difference, phase one and phase, whether you,
Yeah,
because there was bigger numbers to start with.
yeah. And to some extent, what we're saying is the same thing. We recommend moving on with something smaller than looking at all four areas and
Right,
looking at,
so,
which would be a condensed,
so
easier to understand.
Paula will let you know.
Yep.
And I think a lot of our, what's going to inform our decision is that presentation at the next select board meeting.
Right.
That's going to help us, like I understand, I like your point about nobody would build this without grant funding,
Yeah,
without
right,
something.
doesn't happen.
So to me, the thing I've been wondering about this whole time is the grant gonna cover 15%, 85%? I have no idea where that is.
Or you have to have multiple grants.
We could provide some examples of that.
Yeah,
That
so
would be
to
helpful.
me, that,
Can or we go to clean water program?
We can provide some examples of if you had use reasonable ranges for.
I think that would be, that would be really helpful for me.
For me as well, and I was
Yeah.
actually thinking like maybe, I don't know what I'm talking about, but like if someone say, oh, here's how Richmond did it.
Yeah.
They needed to raise $50 million and they did this, and they did this, and they did this, and then this ended up in taxpayers. Just, cause I have no idea, 15%, 50%, 85%, like.
Yeah.
It's an example, either like
The
a.
defense thing
like
was
a-
cool. That one was really interesting, and I get your dilemma. You wouldn't ever know until you went to actually start.
Right.
Yeah.
But just having a sense
outside
of
of
how
that-
towns have done this in the past, at least for myself, I have never done it before. Just get a sense of how they get paid for.
Yeah, I
in
think that would be
general.
really helpful.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you mentioned the phone, yeah, there is a final presentation. I think you guys are all right.
Right.
So after we produce the final report.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Okay, that sounds good.
that's right.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Jim?
Westford just did a project like this, started a couple of years ago, and they ended up with a $4 million estimate to do a system in the center of Westford.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know about that one.
You all know about that one.
Funding was 90%.
Yeah.
But because of communications and
Didn't happen.
everything.
Didn't happen.
When it went to the bond, it actually got defeated for the 400,000.
Thanks.
Thank you. That's because when it goes to bond, everybody votes. And you have to educate.
Or not everybody.
Well, I mean,
Everybody
Everybody is allowed
has the
to.
option to.
Everybody is allowed to vote, but that the systems doesn't cover everybody.
Yeah.
Is you have to do a lot of
Which
education.
side gets the turnout?
Yeah, that's right, absolutely. And there are times when it passes, but that's a good deal. Okay, now it is going to do the update on the town courts dam removal grant application for final design work. But thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, thank you.
Because, having three different village centers, villages.
Yeah.
Made it a little more difficult.
It's a challenge.
So you can one to put into two, so he did four.
That's right.
Yep. I'll be in touch.
Yeah.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Are we ready to proceed?
We are certainly ready to proceed.
Critical water.
All right, well, almost.
1 second, sorry.
A drink break.
Understood.
Okay, fire away.
We can keep this relatively brief because I know everyone's probably getting tired. But I did, so just update you on where we are with this project and also ask for permission to proceed with the next phase of the project. And so this is we are presenting to you tonight the preliminary design for the Jericho Town Forest Dam removal. I came to you, and when I say we, I speak for the Jericho Conservation Commission. I'm on the Conservation Commission, and we came to you probably more than a year ago to receive approval to raise the funds to move forward with this preliminary design. And now we have the results of that, or most of the results of that, and another funding opportunity is coming available in November. So with your approval, we'd like to move forward with writing a grant to receive funds for the next phase of the project. So that's where we are with the project, and I have Jordan Duffy here, who's the engineer with Fitzgerald Environmental, who's going to sort of just do a quick overview of what's proposed for the design. So this is the concept design of the removal, and after that we can answer any questions. But I would like you guys to consider, so we raised funds for this preliminary design, which is the most expensive part of the design work. And the remaining design, there isn't a lot left to do to get it to final. So ideally, I think the scenario, and this is up to you guys to decide, would be to get approval for that, to bring it to final design and also to remove the dam. So asking for both the funds to remove the dam and to bring it to final design. And we're not asking for the funds, to be clear, we're asking for the permission proceed with writing the grant to obtain the funds.
So what are the matches, do you?
Sorry, go ahead.
I said, what are the matches for the grants?
There is no match required. It definitely is a stronger grant if we provide a match. We spoke at the Jericho Conservation Commission meeting last night about providing a match of a minimum of $1,000.
Oh, okay.
And
I mean,
you're looking at the costs would be about $60,000 in total to finish the design and remove the dam. So with that, I'll pass it over to Jordan to give a high level concept overview, and then we can answer any other questions if that works.
that works fine.
Jordan, do you need me to share the screen with you?
I have it on my screen if I'm able to share, and it could make it even
Okay.
easier for you.
Oops. Hold on just one moment. Let me just make sure. Okay,
You're all set.
you are all. Eric beat me to it, so you can go ahead.
All right, let's see. All right, can you see a plan set?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. Well, thanks for having me. Like Karina said, my name is Jordan Duffy. I'm a water resource engineer with Fitzgerald Environmental, and we do a lot of dam removals and water resource engineering and restoration. So big level, we'll just kind of conceptually talk about what we have planned here. But so what I'm showing now is an overview of the Jericho Town Forest. So Starbird Road is up here at the top of the plan set, and then this big black dashed line is one of the access trails that we would use to get down to the dam. And then down here in this bottom left corner is the actual sheet pile dam and the impoundment in the water feature that we're looking to remove. So going through the plan set, this is, we conducted a site survey and topographic and bathymetric. So we actually measured the depth of the water and the depth of the sediment, and then surveyed the whole area and got a good sense of the geometries of the stream and how we would want to be removing and restoring this area. So looking at this is a profile of the channel as it comes down, and then the water that's impounded behind the sheet pile dam, and then what I have hatched here is all of the accumulated soft sediment, which is a part of our design to kind of remove that so that doesn't just all wash downstream upon the removal of the dam. So this is, again, we'll kind of bigger picture, but what we'd be looking to do is removing the sheet piling dam and removing the concrete associated with it, and then regrading a stream channel throughout the bottom of it. And one thing that we're trying to do with this design is have a very light approach and very natural approach, and not disturb more than we have to. During the kind of inception of this project, it was discussed that we really didn't want to have, a lot of disturbance to this trail network up and out to Starboard Road. So we're really trying to do our best to retain the majority of the sediment that we're going to remove from behind the dam on site in some of the areas just around that would be able to regrade some of that and stabilize it in place, and then just have to have minimal amounts of construction and equipment traffic going up and down those paths. So again, removing that equipment and then having to haul that sheet piling and concrete offsite, and then regrading a stream channel so we can have a natural flow of this spring as it kind of comes out of this gully and then heads downstream. Another piece of this that we discussed was rerouting the trail. So right now, as the trail comes down, it goes down towards the dam, and it gets a little steep and not all that accessible. So our initial walkthrough, somebody from the Trails Committee had discussed maybe rerouting our path in junction with this kind of project. So in hoping to dispose a lot of our sediment in this area, we would also look to regrade our trail to be a little more accessible and a little wider, and accessible for the greater public. So one other thing that we did for this project was to provide some photo simulations, and this is Greenleaf Design used Photoshop to just kind of get a big picture on what we're trying to do and accomplish here. So this is taken from upstream of the pond, kind of like looking at it, and you can see the sheet piling dam here, and then the trail system comes down this steep embankment here and then stays on the left of the river. So this is under existing conditions, and then using photo simulation, the proposed conditions would look a bit more natural, like this, where you see the stream come through, and then we would be grading in some floodplain access here for larger streams to access during larger flow events, and then flow further downstream. And then similarly, this is from downstream of the dam looking back up. So this is the sheet piling dam, and the pond is above it, and the trail network comes down this way currently. And upon removal of that, it would look a little more natural, and stream would meander its way through and connect to the downstream reach. Not captured in this photo sim would be rerouting that trail down this slope in a more stable and accessible way. So that is what I had for a high level overview of the project. I think, as Karina said, we're open to kind of take any questions at this point.
I thought it was good to know that the soils were well within the regulatory standards with the toxins that were getting
Yes.
in. That was
Definitely.
good.
That was a good point, because we were a little worried, because if if they weren't, it would have made the project a lot more expensive and just have a lot more impact having to haul everything off. So that was good news.
Hey, Jordan, I'm relatively new to the select board, so I wasn't here. Can you just give me in like 3 sentences or less why the dam was built in the first place and why it needs to be taken out now?
Yep. So the dam was built, I don't remember when it was built, maybe in the 70s or 80s, but it was at the where two springs came together and they drove that sheet piling and created an impoundment for a drinking water source that they pumped water up to Starboard Road area. There was the community
Okay.
there before it was fully expanded. And then in the 90s, so at that point, Green Mountain Power actually had a pump station down there and was bringing down electricity. And then in the 90s, they stopped doing that and they removed their transformer in the pump station. And now there's some remnants of concrete infrastructure down
Yeah.
there. And that's
Yes.
really why we were potentially expecting some contaminated soils, but we were not. So it's an obsolete dam. What we like to do in these scenarios is remove the obsolete dams and bring them back to kind of naturalize the system and reconnect kind of the headwaters to the downstream reach for aquatic organism passage, flood resiliency. Just, if this were to ever fail, there's a lot of sediment that would just blow right down into the Lee River. So water quality perspective. So yeah, a little more than
Great,
three
thank you very
sentences, but
Yeah,
yeah, no problem.
Okay, so it was worth the time. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, no, this sounds good. So what Karina, I think, was trying to explain was that she was hoping that we would not just approve the next steps, but to approve the next 2 steps. So approve the grant application for the final design work, as well as approve the actual removal of the final dam. Did I get that right, Karina?
Sorry,
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
I was looking at how to word the thing. So
Yeah, basically, I would like to write the grant to request funds for both pieces and versus having to phase it out because that's inefficient for all parties.
So I think your motion will
You
cover
think
it
you're ready to
anyway.
make that motion? Yeah.
All right, so I would like to make a motion to approve the grant application for final design work and removal of the dam in the Jericho Forest.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Good luck.
Thank you for all that
Thank you,
work.
Christina.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time. Thank you, Jordan.
Yeah. Yes, thank you. Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next is update on the kickoff of town meeting Reimagined.
I don't think that's Etcha. I think it's,
SJ's on.
oh, she is? Okay, I thought it was Gay and Dave were maybe doing it.
Gay is on as well.
So they can choose who gets to give us the debriefing and the update and all the goodies.
Well, is Dave Barrington there?
He is not.
Okay. SJ, are you there?
SJ is there.
My challenge, I've read everything, but I just.
That's
we
right, you
were in
weren't there.
Boston. I couldn't be at the meeting, so I can't really, you have the report from Dave. I wanted to come because I wanted to be clear what you're looking, what you're expecting of the task force, if anything, between now and meeting number 2, which has been scheduled for January 23rd with a blizzard date of the 27th. So he just, yeah, anyway.
We don't want blizzards for either one.
Yeah, I don't think, and all 3 of us were at the meeting and also got the report that Dave sent us.
But if SJ wants to say something.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So
sorry guys, I was the person who volunteered to get this on the agenda. I wasn't actually planning to speak. I just promised that I would ask Paula. But I don't have anything prepared. But I'm happy to speak to that, and I will echo Gay's Gay's question to you all, which is, what do you need or hope to get from the task force between now and January?
Well, I think what you gave us was the important stuff at the moment, and I think you just have to keep the public aware of what's going to happen in January, and actually get it organized for that 23rd meeting.
Right, there's a whole logistical thing.
That's the budget.
I'm thinking that Gary's asking like, what of the logistical stuff do you want the committee doing and what is the select board gonna do?
Select board's going to talk about the
Well,
budget.
we just don't want to keep assuming that you want us to keep going. We would like to hear from you. Yes, keep going. We want you to continue to work. We just don't want to assume our way into this whole process. Our original intent was.
I would like you to continue. I'd like you to do all the logistical planning for that meeting and for us to just show up and talk about the budget. I would love that. I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. If you're asking what would we love, I would love that. I'm not saying, great, deal with it. If you want us to be a part of that, we can be a part of that. I mean, I'm thinking for myself. But in terms of like, I would love the committee to sort of do the legwork of lining up the next meeting, and then we walk in and do the budget.
Well, I also like the idea of the one committee staying throughout the process, because that's how we can better evaluate how this process has worked. Because if we switch committees or switch how it's done, do you say, well, it didn't work because we switched, or did it not, did it work because we, you don't know. So I'd like to keep continuity,
Yeah,
I think the group is willing to keep going. I don't mean to presume to communicate they're not. It's just that our original charge was give us some recommendations about what to do. We did that. And so we just need your charge. That's all.
Yeah, I think that's a great point that I think we hadn't really considered.
Right.
Yeah.
You're right. We asked you to come up with a plan. You came up with a plan, and now you're saying, now what? I get it.
But this is good.
So yeah, I think if you're willing to continue to like imagining this reimagination and doing the things, I think that's what we're all looking for. I also don't want you to feel like you're obligated for the next 15 years to like keep putting this thing on, but I think doing it through the big one and maybe even, hey, well, how do we, maybe a month later, you're like, hey, okay, so what do we change next year? At least that long, I would.
I would think so. After town, at the actual vote, and we see what happens, this week, we'll have it that January, we'll have our normal reviews, and then you'll have the vote. But it would be important to have a real debriefing, then to figure out, okay, what worked, what didn't work, what we can do better, kind of stuff. And at that point, everybody reevaluates what we need to do.
Yeah,
And
I think the committee very much sees this as a learning process, and I like what Sam said at the meeting. This will be the worst we ever do. Because
Everyone keeps saying that. We should make T-shirts that say that, like town meeting 2025. This will be the worst way we ever done this.
Welcome to Jericho.
Right.
I mean, I think that's helpful feedback, and what I think I'm hearing is that the plan that we propose to you is you're on board with, and you want us to execute on that. I want to say two things. One, just for public record, the report that we're all referring to was the task force. The task force recorded all of the input that was given at the town meeting kickoff, or the kickoff town meeting, whatever. We facilitated small groups to elicit input to deliver directly to the select board. And that's what that report is just a synthesis of all of that input, so that it does go directly to the select board. And then that should also be publicly available, so folks who were there can see their suggestions in print, know that it got to the select board, and also so that neighbors can see what their neighbors talked about. And what they might want to be thinking about. But the other thing that you brought up that I think is important too is that this is the first time, this is practice, and There was a lot going on, so I don't know if you noticed that at the meeting we did have surveys to collect input from the folks who were there about the experience, so that we can kind of do that assessment at the end and huddle, and not just amongst ourselves say, okay, what worked, what didn't work, you know, we gotta get more coffee next time, but also so that the people who were there can share with us their experience of participating. And so that was an important part of this first meeting. It will be an important part of the next meeting as well, and for the follow-up vote, so that we can take that information and make next year better.
I also believe, and SJ, you can correct me on this, that the MMCTV Angelica is putting together, there is a full, the whole thing was taped, and if somebody wants to watch the whole thing, they could. But I believe she's putting together like a synopsis of, so that we could help tap the, you know, have a link and people could watch something that's only, I don't know what the length is, but probably 10 minutes, not more than 10 minutes, that gives people a really strong sense of what happened and how that feeds into the next step, and the next meeting should look for, as we envision it so far, and again, we haven't designed this yet, but it's my sense that it will look more like the town meeting format that people are familiar with, that the point of the next meeting isn't so much brainstorming and kicking off a process, but rather to enable people to respond to the draft budget you put forward, and develop a sense of the room. So there'd be a vote, you know, there'd be a process, there'd be a moderator, yeah, and using a hybrid format, sort of the, so, and I think that's going to require, there'll be a point where our committee is going to need to be in touch with the select board to understand the timing of when a draft is available, in what form, you know, so we're communicating clearly to folks, where are we, and you know, what public questions the select board may want to initiate, things like that. Those we don't, maybe you know now, but I don't, and I don't need to, but we do need to be communicating once we get to, you know, the 1st of January.
Would it be easier for one person from the select board to communicate with your committee, rather than you having to come and sit at these meetings and wait for 2 hours for your turn to have a 15-minute conversation about what questions are all, like, to be able to
Yeah, I used to do
move
that.
information back and forth quickly, so you guys don't have to wait?
This isn't that hard. With Zoom, it's not that hard. I'm sitting here writing my postcards in my
That's great.
anxiety stage of elections.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, yeah.
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 I don't mind doing that. We can take turns, but Catherine is she gets all the emails.
Yeah, I do.
So as long as you're talking to us and communicating back to them.
Yeah.
Sabina has her hand up.
Yep.
When it's ready for me to post on the website, can somebody send me the report so I can put it up there for people to read? The one that has the small group discussion breakout stuff. And also, a couple of people at the meeting were interested in getting more of a sense of the timeline as it relates to like the statutory stuff. So, you know, you guys have to have your budget by a certain date, and all the calendar things that you've already figured out, you know, X has to happen before Y and so on. Catherine, can you just send me like those dates, and I'll figure out a way to make it into some kind of a
Send it to
table.
Paula and she's put it into a new put it into format with some of the, adding some of the different committees and outside agencies and everything also on that, so that she'll give you everything then.
Perfect. Okay, thank you.
Some may change. I mean, there's always subject to change which committee can come in or which outside agency has numbers in it at a time, but it has the basic framework of our timeline.
Yeah, I think that's what most people are just interested in, is the big picture, So, thanks, Paula.
You're welcome.
And then one thing I want to say quickly, just for Jay and SJ, that from my perspective, I would like to see some version of the committee continue into next year and have some continuity from year to year on organizing all this. That's just me talking, not the select board.
Yeah, we'll see how they feel after town meeting.
But I wouldn't want a new group to have like reinvent the wheel.
Oh, no, that would be terrible.
Yeah, and I think also there are inflection points like now where if somebody wanted to join the committee, anytime people could join the committee, but in particularly, so there may be new energy next year when people want to join. And I'm sure I would hope there'll be people who are on the committee now who would want to continue. The other piece I will say is there are other towns working on similar issues, and the state legislature has been talking about how to adjust some of the rules around conducting town meeting in order to accommodate some of the same issues that Jericho's been wrestling with. And we early in the process spoke with Susan Clark, who's kind of she's written the book, quote unquote. She really has written the book with Frank Bryant about town meeting, and she does a lot of consulting with towns around the state. And she's working with some of those efforts at the legislature. I think there's even a study committee specific to this, and they may ask to have to learn from what Jericho's been doing at some point. And I don't think that means representing the town in some way as if it's a town position, but more just explaining what we've been doing. So I just mentioned that in case that's of interest or it gives you qualms that you should, I envision that might happen this fall. I don't know what that looks like, and if it seems more involved than I imagine it, we can bring that up in one of our updates.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I thought it felt like a successful day. Okay, so we can move on then, I guess, to where we are.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We need to appoint Chris Shaheen as our representative to the Planning Advisory Committee of the RPC.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And sometime along the way, whether it's our new public works person or something like that, we will need to have a representative on the Transportation Advisory Committee as well. So that's what we're about a lot of big grants for transportation.
Okay.
This name, I don't mean they printed.
You know how to do that?
No.
I don't know how to write cursive anymore, so.
Sometimes I
can't even do checks anymore.
sometimes I split it, oops, I put it in the wrong line and with the print and then the written. There we go.
You go here.
Okay, next is approval of private family burial site application.
Yes, so Jessica updated that application and,
Good.
yep,
I thought it looked new.
yep.
We have to approve. This is our private family burial site document report.
Is that in our packet?
Yes. It came in,
Oh, is it in one of the separate
It was
ones?
an attachment,
Oh,
yes,
sorry.
because it was on legal side. Jessica, looked it on legal, so.
Okay, I must have missed that one, but, is there anything to talk about?
No.
no, I mean, she's got the statutes in there and, it came from, basically from the statutes. We just have to approve that this is useful and it gets, basically it gets put into the records because you have to know where the plot is on the land.
Remember Isabella?
So are we
Martin was-
approving a
Yes.
specific site or are we approving?
No, you're
We're
approving the
approving
document.
a document that I will fill out if I want to bury my wife on my property. I'll fill this document out.
And then the health officer fills it in too.
Yep.
Okay, motion to approve the, private family burial site application.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Next, we move on to liquor licenses, and now we actually see that Stewart's officially did buy Jolly's.
Yes.
So that, so
Can
the other day.
can we find out for sure that we're gonna get their ice cream there before?
I know, I'm pretty about that too, because we always
I
have
know.
New York, because there's when we go down to Rhinebeck, we go 22A and then 22, and then there's a big new Stewart, Stewart Street
And the cool
renovated.
sodas, they have like make their own, like,
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
ginger
yeah.
ale and
Yeah.
Orange soda and.
yeah. All right, well, I will, make a motion to approve the liquor license for Stewart's Shops, second class license, tobacco license and tobacco substitute license. I will second that.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All righty. Select board updates.
I gave you a couple of updates, the Richmond Rescue and Essex Rescue.
Right.
I gave you those just for your reference. Yeah, I have two. So, I do have, I don't think I gave you guys this for the road acceptance policy because Peter was gonna talk to Claudine.
Right. So
So,
that'll be the next meeting. Because we can't vote on it.
no, but I just wanted to let you know that, she changed it, but then
And she and I talked, and what she has, I think is good, and gets to our intent, and she was just
Okay.
confused about our intent, and so I talked to her today,
Perfect.
and said, here's the one, she
Straighten
said,
it out.
and, no, I mean, she's like, I can, well, talk about an hour about the,
You can talk,
Like on
yeah, you
Twitter now?
can, yeah.
Yeah, you can talk about it. It's an update.
so basically our what her concern was, she said, are you gonna let them limit anything? And I said, no, if they wanna take the road over. And she said, well, what about the example she used, those people in Essex who now have the guy with the ducks and the the ducks and the cannabis living, he's a farm, and he's actually like 4 acre zoning, he's ruined all these properties all around him. And she's like, what about them? And I said, well, speaking for myself, not you guys, I said, I'm not interested in protecting an HOA from that any more than I'm interested in protecting myself from that. So if I'm exposed to that, then an HOA shouldn't be able to say, you can't do that. You don't have extra protection. She said, like, we'll get together, they have a deed, they make some agreements. And I said, yep, that's all fine. What we're saying is you don't get to make any special rules about what can happen around your property.
As it pertains to zoning.
As it pertains to zoning. If you want to take over your road, if you don't want to have, I kept saying, if you don't want to have ducks and pot next door, great, you got to take care of your own road. She said, okay, as long as you know what you're doing. I said, yep, I know what we're doing. And I said, from my perspective, they shouldn't have more protection from that kind of disaster than I do as a regular person
Yeah.
with property.
Yeah.
And if they don't, and they want that protection, I'm not gonna pay for their road.
Right, that's exactly what we
That's
talked
exactly-
about, and that's what we're trying to get at, and we're trying to just, we have the right to take over or not take over any road. So
Right.
the point of the policy is to try to give some guidance so that the
People
people
know.
that, you know, the people we've been dealing with have kept being like, okay, so now what? And then somebody
Right,
throws
right.
something out and they go do it, right? Where the idea of the policy is to give some sort of
Here's the
guidance
roadmap.
that says,
Right.
here are the things that you will need to do to get the select board to likely, you know, take over. So, yeah, so great. I'm glad you had that
Yeah,
conversation.
that's great.
Yeah.
So that's good. Yeah, because I read it and I thought it was a good, it looked good to me this go around because it really did talk about what we wanted. So at the next meeting, we can approve it.
Okay,
And then Black Walnut will have to see how it meets the zoning.
okay. And one other thing that I have for updates is that I got an email from Clayton Clark from the Green Mountain.
Oh, yeah, I was going to talk about that because I had a meeting last night.
Okay, perfect.
And then you can follow up if the letters any different.
Yeah, okay, sounds good.
Yeah. And that's what you have?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the Regional Planning Commission is very much into paying attention to all these calendars that take over all kinds of holidays of religious or significance to other cultures. And so instead of tonight, on Wednesday night, we had our meeting on Tuesday. And Clayton Clark came to that RPC meeting, and the board itself had met that morning and said they voted to eliminate the Jefferson commuter route as of December 2nd. And the representative of GMT is going to be on the bus to discuss this and the riders' options. But also there are other routes that were also being eliminated at this time, and they voted to essentially eliminate more of some of the commuter route things in March, and then a lot of several very important urban routes in June. They voted to eliminate them all. But the idea is they're thinking of, they're going to talk to people about how to form a van or carpool, because there is that Go Vermont website that does that. There already is a van pool that exists for people going to Global Founders. And although there's strong support for increased funding from GMT from other entities, Mr. Clark did not feel that this will bring back the bus for this area. And so we could consider re-engaging the Tri-Town Committee to see if there's interest in, for them working to put together a van pool for transportation and utilizing some of the money we had set aside. But we have to engage, 16,000 won't go very far for a van pool, but you have to engage Underhill and Cambridge to do something along that line. But that
What if the three towns, I'm not kidding, what if the three towns bought an 11-person van and contracted for $0 with someone from Jeffersonville to do the route every day, twice a day, and it's somebody who's going there anyways. The cost is the person driving the car.
Oh, absolutely.
But if somebody, if we say,
plus
listen,
plus the van and the liability and all.
no, but I know, but the
Yeah.
big cost is the FTE.
Oh, absolutely.
If we provided the van, so listen, Billy, who has been riding this bus for 5 years, we're gonna give you a van and we're gonna pay you nothing to drive into Jefferson, drive to Jeffersonville, stop, into Burlington, stop, home. And then.
Yeah, just one trip a day.
Yeah,
Right.
those, so when I worked at IBM, there were people that did just exactly that. So just like she's talking about at Global Foundries, and there was like a group of people that lived in Swanton, and they did that. They did exactly that. I think, I didn't live there, so I wasn't part of it, but I think they all chipped in money. They owned a van as a group, and then, yeah, one of them had to drive. They had to take turns driving, and I think at the time it was a 12-hour shift, so it made a little more sense or whatever.
Because they're all queued up in the same place.
Yeah. So anyway, but yeah, I mean, those things are out there.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
bet we could get funding somewhere for that kind of thing.
Well, it was interesting, the Tri-Town Committee, there was a representative from Cambridge, one from Underhill, and then first it was Tim Nolte. And then it was Wayne for years tried to work with that. They went, did the RPC study. They worked with GMT. They tried to find other funding to do something because that was their idea. They were hoping to have more groups and stuff, more time, back and forth to take care of, like, say, if seniors wanted to go to Burlington for the afternoon. I don't think anybody, unfortunately, probably that ship is sailed. But we should consider that.
How would we consider that?
We would have to, you could either re-engage the Tri-Town Committee or Paula could reach out to Underhill and Cambridge to see, or, one of the select board members, because it was first Tim and then and Wayne took over for Tim when he was no longer here, because he wanted to do it. Or maybe get Wayne back.
But is that committee even functioning now?
No,
Right,
no,
I thought so.
It went,
Yeah.
because it
Yeah.
kept trying to do something with the various entities, and nothing was happening, because they were trying to get grants and stuff, and they couldn't at that point, and they said, we're toast, we're going. But maybe you bring Wayne back, maybe it's one of you guys, or it's the 3 town administrators, to see, because there is a liability issue
Right.
that has to be dealt with.
That seems like not a huge
Each town administrator takes a turn, right?
That seems like an easy way, not easy, but a relatively low hanging fruit way to really have an impact on those, whatever it is, 11 riders.
Yeah, I mean, because it's really, anywhere between 11 and 13, because the average was 25.
Right.
Well, if you think about it, I'm not sure, but if each town pays like whatever, 16,000.
Right.
3 towns.
Right.
Pays for your van right
There's your van, you got a brand new van.
Right. Yeah, and then, and then.
16,000 a year.
Yeah, and then different towns would, one year it would be the.
Yeah, 316 would be 48,000.
And then one town,
Yeah.
could buy the liability insurance and stuff for 1 year, and then, because that's what we used to do back and forth with Underhill for.
So is that appropriate for, who should?
I can look into
Can
it.
you have bandwidth to reach out to Underhill and Richmond or Underhill and Jeffersonville and say, hey, we're trying to triage this Green Mountain thing and maybe.
I don't, because some of those 12 or 13 people did come from Jeffersonville too.
Right.
Yeah. So you're right, maybe some.
And I emailed that woman.
Wait,
Did they consider downsizing?
yes,
Yeah, they came and we asked.
We had a whole,
everything.
We tried every angle we could.
And that's because Jericho is considered part of the urban bus service, because people go into Burlington. So they tried to, like Heinsberg went with the rural service. They left and then went to the rural service because they were able to do that. A rural service out of Morristown looked at us and went, no, it's not economically feasible for us to do that either. So it really
comes down to the driver.
It really
It's
comes
not
down
so
to
much the
the
bus.
It's not the bus, it's the driver.
Well, it's just that they've got the liability, they've got the training.
Right. Oh, I know.
And.
Oh, yeah, and they got the CDL.
And it would just be simpler
Oh, wouldn't it though?
if you could get, let's just call it Green Mountain Transit Light and.
Oh, yeah. There are a lot of people last night at the RPC meeting that also had the same discussion, because some of the intercity routes are being rejiggered, and as well as the bigger commuters.
So Paula, I have this woman Liz, who in my head, she's Liz, the bus lady, who's the one who emailed all 3 of us.
Right.
The bus.
Yeah, I was in contact
And
with her too.
I emailed her after our last meeting and said, hey, this guy, Dan's going to be riding the bus, I'm looking for options, da, da, da. I'm gonna email her after this meeting and say, hey, we talked about this tonight. We're just throwing out ideas, but if you're interested in this and interested in being a part of figuring things out, and I'll maybe put you, I'll email you and her together.
Yeah.
So she has your email and you have hers.
Okay.
And she might be like, oh, I know people, like she might be able to.
Right, because she's been riding the bus a long time.
Right.
So, but I mean, that's one way of doing it, because we all put money into the bus service. And, they will be refunding or, but it will be, prorated for December 2nd. What you
Which
get
Chuck was still on, hey Chuck, microbus. micro transit, 2025, a year early. Micro transit by 2026.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly, but yeah.
Hopefully they'll watch the video.
The other thing is the Transportation Improvement Program for fiscal year 25 through 28 was discussed. And a public hearing was warned for November. And these are federal fiscal years. So it goes from October 1st, 2024 to September 30th, 2028. But the bridge on Bridge 15 and Browns Trace over Millbrook, construction starts fiscal year 25, fiscal year 26, because it's trying to get, it ends up breaking to 2 years, even though it's probably going to be calendar year. Because it needs to be done over the summer months, because the idea was to do it when school ends and before school starts. Preliminary engineering is going to start on the multimodal pathway to MMU in fiscal year 25. Currently, the TIP also has construction in fiscal year 27. Improvement, so that's pretty good for the multimodal. The improvement to Bridge 6A, which is the culvert project that they came and talked to us about, that's put on the TIP for fiscal year 27, but it doesn't really impact.
Right.
It was just kind of going on the road.
Yep.
And the TIP is also listing construction of the river sidewalk for fiscal year 26 and Riverside for fiscal year 25. So work has to move on. There we go. So that's what I had for updates.
I have 5 things, sorry.
That's okay.
First one is just to say out loud to you two that I'm no longer really on the garage scene, and I feel like I want to be like, you're kind of the garage point person.
Eric's been joining too.
Yeah. Oh, you have it? Oh,
Yes.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Crap, the garage, I had no idea what's going on.
Yeah, I've
Okay.
been,
Okay,
He's been
thank you.
joining.
I didn't quite realize that it was a every other week thing when I signed up. Paula just keeps adding me, like, this is
gonna keep happening.
But it works fairly well, so there might be some time where I won't be able to join, but
Yep.
mostly did you want an update on that?
Nope, I just want to be like, hey, just,
Yeah,
yeah,
I've been
from my
talking-
perspective, I was like, no one on the select board has any idea what's happening in the garage.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we're
Okay, great, okay. My second thing was, I called Susan Brzee and pitched an idea to her. Is she still here?
No.
And pitched an idea to her that a member of the select board, a member of the planning commission, and Paula and Chris Shaheen form a little subcommittee or whatever the word would be for it. We talked about how there's sort of like the everyday, the electrolytes and all that stuff, and then what gets lost in the minor stuff is the big stuff, like what are the big projects, where are we at, what's going on with this, and having kind of scamming out a 3 to 5 year plan for what the different projects are, when they're going to be landing, what the money situation is, and having a handle on that whole big picture thing. And she thought that was a great idea. And I ran it by Paula, who said, yeah, that sounds good to me too. And I said, well, I'm going to talk to Eric and Catherine first. And the idea would just be to sort of have a group that isn't meeting here for 3 hours twice a month that could meet. First of all, it wouldn't be a open meeting violation. So that group could meet and talk things through and then bring stuff back to the planning commission and to the select board and to the staff, just about sort of what the bigger picture thinking is, bigger picture planning. But I didn't want to do anything farther than talking to people until I talked to you guys and got your read on it.
So the main purpose would be just kind of keeping tabs on some of these bigger projects, like, hey, where are we at with wastewater? Like, what are the next steps? Like, just that kind of thing?
Yeah, so it's, and like, we sat down, whatever, the 3 of us and Paula sat down, I'm gonna say 5 months ago, whatever it was, and spent a day and kind of went, they had a spreadsheet of like
We did.
36 different things,
Yep.
none of which I've thought about since.
Right.
And just sort of have that list.
Actually, some of the stuff I'm sure we have done.
Right, exactly, but it's sort of, in my mind, it's sort of piecemeal, like, I don't have a sense that I have a sense of, I know how old my roof is at home, I don't know how old the town garage was, or what, but some group that can meet outside of this meeting to just get a better handle on I forget, if someone in some meeting sometimes said, so you're putting a little bit of money all the time into stuff and so that ahead of time, so you don't get whacked when something goes sideways. You
Yeah, that's how
realize,
I used
oh
to do
crap, I didn't realize that was coming up, because someone has a sense of how to even the budget out and make it.
That's how we did
make
the
it
road,
not spike.
the road, equipment.
Right,
Yeah.
the road equipment is like a small version of that, but for all the.
Yeah, and road, and then we did a certain amount for road, as well, because, something.
Same thing, you're kind of always putting money
Yeah.
into it, and then when you need it.
And then, we changed things, then we changed, and then I think some of that fell apart. But that's.
That's my proposal, but like I said, I didn't want to do anything without talking to you guys. If you want to think about it, you can think about it, you can't.
Yeah, I mean,
talk to me
because
about
we
it.
really should, think that we would actually put down what should be considered. And then,
Yeah.
and then.
Yeah, I mean, off the top of my head, I like the idea, but I probably just want to just think through it and,
Yeah,
just think through optics and I don't know,
Yep.
that type of thing. And
right.
but I think I think getting a beat on that stuff is something that we need to do. I don't know if that's the best way to do it or not. Maybe it is, but we've got to do something. So I like that it's good.
I know, so we had
And that's exactly what I think, because like we have to get a handle on this, and I don't know how to do it without making a select board meeting every week to try, one week it's for liquor licenses, the next week it's for big planning, then you just there's just not enough time in these meetings.
Right. Okay.
So you guys wanted to think about that.
Yeah.
My third thing, was the Palmer Lane Maple parking situation. Two things. The email from Paul, I think, was maybe Jacob talking about asking them to push the parking in their current plan, which is still the plan, but to push that out of the right of way.
I think that's what they were gonna do, because he wanted to move it off, but maybe that.
I'm not sure
But maybe that front line might have been,
They gave you guys a map.
yeah, maybe that front.
They showed it to us, they didn't keep it.
Yeah, so Jacob's recommendation is to
Push
the parking lot
push it all
into the
east
trees.
by 5 feet or whatever,
And,
right?
into those trees, so that way people can pull in.
Oh,
They
no, he wants
also-
to do parallel now. I mean, the map was, the planning was parallel.
Yeah, so they'll pull
The
in.
planning he showed us was parallel, 2 layers of parallel. Yeah, that was what he was looking
Yeah,
at.
no, he was still back in, or back out.
But if this is the road and this is Palmer Lane Maple, this is 15, you come down 15 right past the current parking,
Remember, I was talking.
and then you pull to the right, you
Yeah.
pull in this way,
Okay,
then you back out.
Right, the only thing that was parallel was the little things to stop your tires.
Yes,
I think.
correct,
Okay.
correct.
Remember I said the word parallel, and
Yes.
now it, no, I'm like, no, I'm
Yes.
talking about the.
Exactly.
that's right,
Yeah.
okay, yeah.
But we wanna, but Jacob.
But there was an idea to do parallel as well.
Yes, he wanted to push that in. And so that way the cars can pull in further
All the way
and
off the
then
road.
go pull out of that parking spot and to pull out onto the road so they can just
I don't
go
think,
That
out
was our
I
planning.
don't think they're gonna accept that.
No, that was our planning.
But I think that,
That was Jacob's recommendation, told Chris, and I don't know where they are with the
Yeah, 'cause
DRB.
that was even what Eric had talked about.
my question is, how does the select board communicate to them that we would like, as they're planning out parking, if this is true, we would like them to, when cars pull in, to have them pull out of the right of way, pull through the right of way, fully onto the Von Turkovich property.
I know when he talked to us initially, he talked about, I'll get to you. He talked about getting in about 20 feet to get off the road. That very first discussion. But whether or not,
Didn't Chris, I thought I saw some communication in it, now I don't remember where I saw it, but
Chris did
Chris
say-
in his review of the permit say all those things?
Yes,
Okay,
he did. Yes.
so I think that's kind of already happened. I think Chris
Yes.
said, looking at this, yeah, I think he should, and I think he said basically that exact thing.
Okay, great, okay. And then my other question was, go ahead, Tom.
Well, I was just gonna say that Palmer Maple does have a sign up saying overflow parking at Jericho Elementary School.
it's
which
pretty noticeable.
I did that once. I doubt very many people do that, but
Right,
I don't know if they coordinated with the school about that, but
They try to do it when school isn't in session, because most of their peak is when school is out, so I mean, I think they have.
They aren't doing a whole lot, 8 to 2, I don't think, on school, on
No.
weekdays.
No, and I think that they have talked to school, I mean, because sometimes it turns out the school wants to use, he was saying that the school wants to use their parking, that little they have.
Oh, yeah.
they do have, at least there's that signaled pedestrian crossing there.
Yeah, to get across.
Yeah, we just have to follow up with, sending an email to, Charlie and Elena so that they can provide technical assistance in that area. 'Cause,
We're trying to land.
Charlie Baker.
Yeah, I don't have their contact. I have Charlie's, but I don't have
Yeah.
Elena's.
I can send you Elena's,
Okay.
because he said, put them both on there, because he said, they could, they're, that they provide 12 hours of technical assistance.
Who are they?
The regional
Oh.
planning.
To look at, you're talking about looking at the area to see what.
Yeah.
CCRPC might recommend.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
My other question was, it feels to me like it would make sense to, and I don't know if we're just poking our noses between neighbors, but if the residents of that road, just down the road from Foreman, if they knew what was being planned and had a chance to give feedback. I think that if they wake up one morning and there's bulldozer putting parking spaces.
Well, I
They
mean,
will
obviously,
Absolutely they'll get the.
yeah, they'll get the zoning.
neighboring-
He has to go to the DRB.
Butters.
Oh, great, never mind, perfect, okay.
Yeah, to do any of this, he has to go to the DRB.
Okay.
So they'll get notice.
Topic 4.
Right.
Last meeting, Eric, we talked about the affordable housing committee's thing, and you had said like we should find a way to give them our opinion or give them feedback or provide direction, or like should we be budgeting around that, or just like how do we
What do we do with
respond?
that?
Well, we looked at what, they presented. We thanked them for the work because it was good work, but a lot of the top points they made were for zoning. And that's,
But probably they're looking for us to say, yes, we like this, we would like the
We need to
planning
give it to
commission,
the planning
we want you to look at this and do 3 of these 5 things. or
and,
whatever.
and the planning commission was focusing on getting the bylaws first.
Right, but I think it's important for us to not just say,
Right.
affordable housing, oh yeah, those are great ideas, but we can't, planning commission's too busy to do it, so we're just not gonna do it. I think we should hand to the planning commission and have them say,
Yeah,
thank you for this, we're gonna work on this next year,
Right.
or in a month, or whatever.
2 months, whatever.
Do we need
No.
an item on the,
I don't think so. I think,
we can just say we like it? I mean, I think we need to discuss.
I think we need to get it ahead of time
Right.
before meeting and look at it and have a conversation about, like,
Yeah.
all 3 of us agree with this one, this one, this one.
Right,
and
but
all right.
So you guys
Right.
don't have that?
No, we do, but I think
Okay.
we just need to, like, we
We
need to
haven't
all.
like discussed it in public.
Yeah.
We received
heard it,
it,
right,
and like,
okay.
there's only so much you can do
Okay.
back and forth and decide right then, right?
Okay.
So, I mean, we have it somewhere, but we can dig it out, or Paula can just send
probably
it.
just
in
that
her
last page, that has
Yeah.
the,
Recommendations.
recommendations, because we do need to talk about what we agree on, because I know there was a bunch of good zoning, and a lot of it was that. And then, of course, it's the holy grail with infrastructure.
And then the last thing is, when I was talking to Paula, well, backing up, I wrote to the VLCT and sent them our charter and said, hey, this is our charter. It says both, the only way the select board can expand to 5 is petitions, blah, 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 blah. It also says in the charter, nothing in this charter, I'm making this up, can go against state law.
Right.
And then state law says a select board can expand to 5 with a vote of the people. I sent something to VLCT and I said, listen, there's a lot of people in town who are interested in us expanding to 5 people. My reading of this is we can't do that other than 15%, et cetera, et cetera. They wrote back and said a bunch of stuff, which I'm being polite, being
Brief.
Well, not brief, never brief, being flippant, but they basically said, yeah, you probably could do that, but maybe not, you ought to ask your lawyer.
Exactly,
And
because.
so wait, hold on, so I called, when I was talking to Claudine
Oh, yeah,
today.
so I know typically they say that your charter
let me just finish. So when I talked to Claudine today, I said, hey, I'm gonna pay you for one more minute. And I explained the situation, and she said, oh, you guys, I'll spare you all of it. She was very pro us going 5. And I said, what's it gonna cost? I said, I have an email, I have my email to BLCT, I have their response. Peter Booth, would like your opinion, but I don't wanna spend the town's money without first talking to Catherine and Eric. How much do you think it will cost for you to read my email and the VLCT email and give me your opinion? And she said, it will be very quick because I'm pretty sure I've already told you. She said, I'm not saying this for sure, but I believe I've already told you you can do it. And I said, oh, you should, I'm not saying I did, I'm saying I think I did, and I would need to look that up.
Because I know that once we did it, I know we had to, when Todd was here and there was the vote, they had to, petition. They had to petition at that point.
So I would like to send my emails to Claudine. I'm happy to show, I guess I can't include you guys on it, but I'm happy to print it out and show both of you what it says.
Sure. Because I know that there's some things that the state law takes precedence and other times the charter takes precedence.
And that's what the LCT said. They said, I think you can, but I'm not gonna tell you you can. You shouldn't talk to your lawyer.
Yeah, because there is that. It all depends on, the charter and what the charter, the issue is. So anyway.
So do you want me to?
That's information, you could just send it.
Okay, I'm just gonna send this.
Because we're not voting, we're not doing anything with it. You're just sharing.
Okay.
And Claudine's okay with sharing information.
Okay. So I will put both of you on this email, and I don't know what it's gonna cost, but I think she made it sound like it's gonna be a 10 or 15 minute read and look up whatever she said before and send it back.
And if she decides that it's not sharing, then she'll send it individually.
Imagine her opinion.
Yeah.
She was hot about open meeting law. She was not happy with Jericho in the last 20 years on open meeting law.
Oh, yeah, because
she called him right out.
Oh, yeah, every time I talk to her.
I got.
It sounded like she and Wayne got into a fight about it.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't hear that.
Yeah.
She said,
Really?
Oh, Wayne was on the board at the time.
Yes.
That we had that conversation.
Yes, exactly.
She was telling me, I'm like, anyway.
Yeah, well, Bob Penn was just as bad, if not worse.
She said, I keep telling you guys, don't put me on email. I'm not gonna defend you in court because someone's gonna call you out. She said, not you. I said, it wasn't me. No, it was the board back then. I told the board back then, someone's gonna catch you guys and you're gonna all be liable.
Yeah.
And believe me off the email. We're very good now.
Yeah, but I'll tell you, I mean, because Bob Penman felt, that you could keep it open forever, and Tim just continued it, and eventually he told her, said, I want you to make it legal what I'm doing. But there it is. All right, we need to move on. You're done?
Yes, thank you for your patience.
No problem, because next is the signing the warrant, and then the minutes of 9:15 and 3.
I did not get a chance to read them. I started to, and then I got distracted and I didn't finish. So
I will state publicly that I read the minutes really well, first time ever. I realized I had to print them out. I can't read them on my screen. And I found an error. And let me be a it's a grammar error.
Oh, yeah, you're good.
What about the 9:30
On number
First,
on number 30 on line 37.
No, the first one.
We should have this.
Sorry, nope, I didn't read that one. That's easy.
That's easy.
Yes, I did read that.
Okay.
Oh, motion to approve.
The minutes of October
September 30th.
30th. Okay, second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, now go with this.
So October 3rd on line 37, it actually does matter.
Yeah.
It's just a missing comma, but it makes a difference. He said if the select board was using the VSP as a reason, comma, the signs could be taken down.
And that's good. It's a good sharing, because there's it used to be a lot of grammatical errors like that, and I just.
My other question was, and I don't care about the comment, except that it changes the meaning of the sentence.
And that's what it's
my other question was, when does Donna produce these? If I could get them like a week ahead of time, or even we got them, I think, yesterday or Tuesday.
Yeah, we have.
Just the, like, everything else can kind of just scan for the meeting to prepare, but this, I'm gonna read it. If I
Okay.
can get it from Donna
Yeah,
earlier.
no, she sent it to us early.
Okay.
We had it, so
Yeah,
I
you can
can
just send that out
to
as a separate thing ahead, or just be ahead of time, so I can print it and read it and not feel like I got something I haven't already looked at, like I've done for the last 6 months.
On 10.3 as well, I have line 318, because
Line what?
318, it says Tom Barabo from the Conservation Commission would like to add more members. And see, although it's me talking about the different things on the chair, when you just go she in this new paragraph, who is she?
Oh,
So it's Catherine.
Catherine thinks, so.
And that's it.
Motion to approve minutes for, I love the date, 10-3.
10.3.
10-3 as amended.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Do we have an executive session this evening? We do. Motion to go into executive session because premature disclosure of the information will be detrimental to the parties involved for reasons of personnel and legal, and I'd like to invite Paula Carrier to this executive session.
Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Good
night.
Second.